Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 50!
50!
I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
That's me.
We have made it to episode 50 like the prophecy foretold!
There was a prophecy?
You didn't get a prophecy? From the witch that lives a few aisles down.
There's no witch, Jay.
Who gave me that prophecy?
Are we talking about... Wait, hold on. Let's be clear here. Are we talking about a Drukhari witch? Because they would not be giving prophecies, and if they were, you should report them immediately.
Oh, yeah. Did you think I meant like a classic old like crone with it? No. She was trying to murder me, and of course when I got away. You don't believe that I got away from a witch?
No, I don't.
All right, fine. Okay, it was an old
They
crone.
are known for, in fact, capturing people.
Fair enough. Fine. It was an old magical witch, and she said there was a prophecy that we'd make it to episode 50, and then the library would explode or something like that. I didn't hear the end of it. But regardless, we made it to episode 50. Can you believe it? I can't.
I believe it less now.
Fair enough. But, man, do we have things to talk about, because of the recent news, a new codex finally released. We had this very long non-codexy dry spell, and it has been finally released, the Space Wolves Codex.
Yeah, I mean, the summer was basically the summer of extra games. I mean, we had Titanicus, we had
Kill Team.
I mean, they were just rolling out a lot of that stuff, so that's fine. Now we're seemingly back into full Codex swing.
It was, I mean, we were just so addicted to it.
Yeah.
Just having that absence
that every
for so
month
long.
that every month or multiple times a month thing of just being like, what's this
Oh my god. Oh my god, that's so terrifying. Oh, that's so scary. Oh god. And then it's just changing everything.
But yeah, everything that we've seen from the Space Wolf Codex, I mean, for one thing, of all of the Space Marine codexes, and what I mean by that is not the core Space Marine Codex, not even Death Watch, but all of like the specific chapter ones, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and now Space Wolves, I think Space Wolves may be the most narrative and epic at the same time.
It is a really narrative and epic codex. They've got a lot of heroes, so many named characters in that codex.
And they're all good.
They've got all those cool sagas, those warlord traits that, like, if you do something rad, your whole army gets cool abilities.
Oh, that's the best part, is that you can take sagas in the middle of a fight as a stratagem and be like, I want songs sung about me.
It's very narrative. It's very cool. I'm pretty excited to see what the Codex does.
Now, out of what's been revealed, do you have either a favorite character, unit, warlord trait,
Well, it's cool
stratagem?
to see Logan Grimnar got a, he got a 2+ save back.
On his
got his old
sled?
2+ save back on his sled, on his magic Santa Claus sled, which is good for him. I believe he's currently, as of right now, I think he's just completely sold out. I think after that change happened, people were like, and take one of those. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have been saying it, but the one stratagem that I think is so freaking rad is that Lone Wolf stratagem, which is so cool.
Very strong.
If people don't know about it, the stratagem is 2 CPs, and if in an infantry unit, which we'll talk about in a second, but as long as you're in an infantry Space Wolves unit, if you're one model left in the unit, you can pop this stratagem, and the model becomes this dark and vengeful badass, becomes a character, gets 2 wounds, and I think can reroll hits and wounds
for the rest of the game.
Yeah, just a freaking badass going on a murder spree to avenge his fellow buddies.
Yeah,
who
it
died.
increases their wounds characteristic by 2, then gives them 2 wounds. So if there's other things that would heal them back and stuff like that, then he can just oh man, it's just so funny.
Now, our biggest problem with this stratagem is that it didn't go epic enough, and it's only infantry.
It doesn't affect beasts or cavalry, which means that you can't have a lone wolf Thunderwolf cav, and you can't have a lone wolf.
The biggest miss, I think, is the fact that you cannot do this to an actual Fenrisian wolf. How cool would that be if the whole wolf unit dies except for one pissed off puppy? and that wolf just gets boosted to like super wolf mode and can go just hunting down the enemies. Like that's awesome.
For me though, it's actually it's more disappointing with the Thunderwolf cavalry because it's wolfception.
Yeah.
Because you have a wolf with a space wolf on top, and they would both become heroes.
Yeah,
because all of the wolf brothers died, and all of the wolf brothers died.
Yeah,
so it's
all the
super
wolves
wolf.
buddies are gone, and also the space wolves buddies are
Yeah.
gone. It's double vengeance at that point. You know, maybe it was because there was too much vengeance going on there. There was too much howling.
Now, the stratagem that I actually think is not only very, very powerful, but also super fluffy is when their Stormcallers, their Psychers, successfully manifest a Space Wolf psychic power. They can do an Aura of the Storm and give -1 to hit to things around them because they summon a fucking blizzard.
Pretty badass.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Rune Priest can just be like, lightning from the skies, and just do some pretty badass stuff. They also, I think they have a psychic power that, like, they can do some more -1 shenanigans, but it might just be to an enemy unit.
Yes.
I don't know if it's specifically to a whole bunch of units.
It's to one enemy unit. They can do a psychic power. It's like a Dark Thunderclouds or something, and they give a unit a -1 to hit.
But what they can also do is, because I think Rune Priest can do 2 powers. Correct me if I'm
They
wrong,
can,
everyone.
because, well, if they're a normal if they're like normal librarians, they can cast 2 and deny 1.
Gotcha. So they could do there's another ability where it lets them do cover, I believe. Like everything gets
Yes.
cover in a 6-inch radius. And then if you pop that stratagem, then everything gets a -1 in a 6-inch radius. And then if you have things like, I don't know, like rhinos, and you pop smoke, now your rhinos get cover, and so they have like a 2-up save and are -2 to hit, which is hilarious to me. Now, I think, I'm not 100% sure, because we don't have the book in front of us. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the cover also works on just units, not just infantry. But I could be wrong.
Well, I know that at least the stratagem for the psychic powers, that's the -1 to hit, specifically just says Space Wolf's unit. So it's everything Space
So
Wolf.
if the cover works too, that would be awesome for rhinos, and it would also be awesome for Thunderwolf cavalry because now they have a 2+ save.
Yeah, and a -1 to hit.
That's pretty good.
Winter's coming, bitches.
It makes sense when at first I was like, man, 3 CP for that, and then I'm like, oh, because it's an aura. Like
Yes.
because when you think about it, for like I run the Eldar stratagem all the time, lightning fast reactions, where you pick a unit that's getting shot and you give it -1 to hit, but this is any unit within 6 inches of that Rune Priest, which is huge.
Now, it'd be one thing if they only had offensive abilities, and then it'd be much harder to get because you have to get in range and have a proper unit and stuff like that. But the fact that they have buffs that can then use a 3 CP stratagem for more buffs, really awesome.
Pretty good. So we're pretty excited about the Space Wolves Codex. I mean, one thing people are also talking about is that obviously their faction ability with the +1 to hit is pretty badass.
Specifically with Wolfen
And Thunderhammers and anything that is a power fist is just like, hell yeah, no more -1 to hit, baby.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Very strong.
So we're excited about that. Space Wolves, and of course the announcements of Orktober.
October, they've committed. They've listened to us. They understood the humor of it.
They were like, we've got to make this Orktober.
It's got to happen.
And rumors are that this release, much like Death Guard, is going to have a lot of new models and kits, just like we saw the new War Buggy, I believe it is, right? It's the War Buggy?
War Buggy, yes.
They have that new kit. Apparently, there's going to be a whole bunch of new
With
kits.
some kind of gun on the back that is not a normal War Buggy gun. But they are going hard into the Mad Max style.
Which is pretty awesome.
Awesome.
That's a pretty good theme to go with. And, I mean, tons of new kits. We're also hearing that the Orc release is not going to be just a Codex and maybe like a War Buggy or something. Like, this could be much like Death Guard was. A bunch of releases over multiple months. Like, kind of like it took us months to get all, like, the Blight Crawlers and the Blight Haulers and the Blight Ballas and, you remember the Blight Ballas, right? I don't see them in armies anymore. That's not a thing. But for anybody flipping over their Death Guard Codex feeling like they missed something.
Yeah, but they also did, they took it a step further with the Death Guard of rolling Death Guard then straight into Demons. So Nurgle Demons specifically. So there was like a bonanza of Nurgle.
Yeah, so we're excited to see what happens with Orktober. I mean, I think it's just going to be everybody and their mom has just been like,
I just want my 14 wound Gaskell with his 2+ save, his 3+ invul, his once per game 2+ invul, and just going around with his 6 attacks,
God.
strength 14, fucking auto 4 damage.
That's
just
a lot of wishes. It's a lot of magical wishes you've got, sir.
Down the grapevine.
Now, you also have another special wish.
Oh,
a 4-armed Emperor wish.
Yes. Okay, so call out to Games Workshop. I'm calling you out. you better give me a September Genestealer Cult book, because if you don't, after releasing new models in the Tooth and Claw kit,
He will be mad.
I will be very mad, and you don't want me mad.
I mean, we don't know what'll happen, but if you could, that'd be great. That's all we're asking.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely that gap there, because obviously we just got Space Wolves, so there's now a gap in September that they can release Genestealer Cult, and we also had like the tease of new models, other new models,
Yeah,
a
the
long
new
time ago.
Aberrants, and now the new, what is it, the Abominant?
The Abominants, but I'm saying even previous to that,
Yeah,
months ago.
They released some early photos.
Yeah, they showed my favorite, possibly the coolest model in 40K,
Whoa.
saying it right here.
Whoa! It's a hot call. Hot take.
They showed a Desperado Primus type model that has he's got the shawl of Clint Eastwood. He's got the face cover.
Who I believe was a
Shemagh.
Primarch from many thousands of years
He
ago.
was the Primarch.
The original
He
Primarch.
taught the Emperor.
Oh my god. Holy shit.
But he is a Desperado with not one gun, not two guns, but three guns.
That's a lot of
He
guns.
has three arms.
He can
so.
shoot in 3 different directions.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. That's some great split firing right there.
Boom, boom, boom. He was like, Cypher, you thought you were cool, but
Oh.
you don't got that 4-arm Emperor extra arm, bitch. I mean, just saying.
Took it to the next level. Cypher's like, son of a bitch! Somebody get me a tech priest. I need a 3rd arm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're excited about it. I hope Genestealer Cult gets that release.
They need it.
The new models look awesome. They look amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I need to see the stats and stuff. Aberrants, yeah, they were like a pretty static model. They all kind of just had their arms down to their sides.
They weren't going to the gym enough, They weren't able to get those hammers above their heads or
Yeah.
lifted in, a more like dynamic pose. But after about a year, they hit the gym. They're back.
And there's now one with a street sign, which is like, yes, I will have that, please.
I love that. I love that the creators were like, yeah, I made this one with a street sign for fun, and they were like, yes, print it.
Now, I think I might have to convert the Abominant if I use it, because it's a crying shame that his little buddy is not on his back shoulders for Master Blaster. I'm just saying, big missed opportunity there.
Hit them with the giant power sledgehammer. Yes. I love that they've got like these little dudes that follow them around that I guess are like psychic hubs.
Familiars, yes. So they're like a living beacon of the hive mind kind of thing. The rules are kind of weird right now that they're sort of a unit and sort of not.
Yeah.
Very strange.
There's some weird stuff in the index with familiars. So we're hoping that gets cleared up in the new Genestealer Cult Codex, which, fingers crossed, and other set of fingers from our 4 arms.
Coltember?
Is Coltember. Right? It all works. It all makes sense. But guys, those are the details we're getting from the hot news out there in the interwebs and the Vox channels that we're
Over the
tapping into.
Vox.
Now we're going to talk about our Seasons of the Month. And in our Seasons of the Month is when Andrew and I recap a tournament we were at in the past month and talk about how badly we screwed up and the lessons that we learned. And
So often.
So often. We went to a big tournament this last month.
Yeah, so I guess we'll dive right in. I'll start us off.
Oh my goodness, so gracious.
Sword, me jumping.
There we go,
There
right
we
into
go.
it.
So we had the once a year Game Empire Pasadena in California, their Hammer of Wrath tournament. It's their grand tournament. It's always in August, and it's a 2-day, 5-game tournament. And special guests include people like Reese and Frankie, the frontline crew, and some other people. We had some world-class Warhammer players.
Ooh, world-class Warhammer players. We've got our very own top 8, Jeff Poole, who might have done pretty well at the tournament.
He won that bastard.
Hometown hero of Game Empire Pasadena.
I have to pat myself a little bit. I got 3rd, but
Wow, you just gave it away right at the top.
I would have had 2nd if Jeff Poole had not dropped 8 points in the last turn and beaten his opponent and not
You
tied
were real
him.
salty about that outcome.
Super salty.
You were like, all right, whoever wins, it doesn't matter. I will get 2nd place, and then they tied.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. Both of those players technically went undefeated because they tied their last game.
Yeah, so I went 4-1. I had a very good tournament. The guy who ironically got 2nd place is the only person I lost to, and I lost to him by 2 points.
Sucker.
And it was because I deployed badly, which is part of my C's.
In your face.
So in this tournament, I brought my very soupy Imperialist, Super Soup.
Oh, yes.
I have Death Watch as my main detachment. I have 3 units of Intercessors. I've taken out the Hellblasters and all
And
this
these
other
are
stuff.
Intercessors. These are not veterans with Stormbolters. These
No.
are the 2-wound Intercessors.
Straight Intercessors with bolt rifles. Nothing special. Just the 10th guy is an Inceptor, the flying dude, with 2 Assault Bolters just to give them fall back and shoot.
A lot of bolter. Yeah, if people don't
Very
know,
strong.
it lets them basically have a better Ultramarine stat.
Yeah, it just gives them fly, basically. Not in the movement phase, but if they get caught in combat, then they have fly. They can just fall back and shoot for free.
Pretty cool.
Really awesome. So I had 3 units of those, 2 Watchmasters, one that typically who has a jump pack, who would typically deep strike with the 3 units of Intercessors that would always deep strike because you don't want to start them on the board because they get mowed down really fast.
Very true.
A regular Watchmaster just to be my Warlord, sit back, have his awesome Warlord trait, but to give me CP back. Then a Battalion of Blood Angels, 2 Sanguiniuses. If you don't know what that is, it's 2 captains with jump packs, Thunderhammers, and Storm Shield.
They do work. They kill literally anything.
Very, very, very good. Both of them had relics. One had the more CP relics. One had the no Overwatch relic.
Which meant you had 2 guys rolling for CPs every time you were spending them.
That's right. Although it basically, I never got CP back. I had a double.
Well, it's because of your basic Warlord trait, which, if people don't know, Andrew's standard Warlord trait is that he has bad dice rolls.
That I have a -1 to all my dice
Yes.
rolls, just standard.
It's a pretty rough Warlord trait. I wouldn't recommend taking it, but it only seems to affect you. So,
But yeah, like so that's a very good combo. I have some decent combat. I have some very good shooting. I mean, I cannot support Intercessors enough. Having a stock -1 AP when you have a gun that, if they're neither captain, hits on 3s, rerolling 1s, and wounds on 2s, rerolling 1s.
because of those Hellfire rounds.
Is so good.
2+ poison is amazing.
It's so good. And like I said, a lot of people underestimate the stock -1, but I mean, it puts it over the edge for a lot of the units they're firing at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even against things like Magnus or Mortarion, if they're not buffed, forcing their save from a 3+ to a 4+, that's a big deal.
Huge deal. I mean, there's literally, and I know from my own army, the Eldar Psychic Power Jinx, obviously your -1 doesn't impact invulnerable saves, but most of the time that Jinx actually goes a long way just for affecting armor saves by 1 point,
Yes.
and your guns do the exact same thing.
Yeah, Jinx essentially applying the -1, and this is what the guns do. And they're a fairly cheap unit for what they have, their output, and their survivability. I mean, they're Space Marines, so they have good survivability in the sense
And
of
2 wounds.
leadership, 2 wounds each, 3+ save. They're essentially what Space Marines I feel should be. Like the standard Space Marine should just be Intercessors. They feel more Space Marine-y. And then my last detachment is a Knight detachment. It's a full Knight detachment now. 1 Gallant, which is, if you don't know, is the melee Knight. It's got the fist, the chainsword, and then the side gun. And I took the not the big crack missile launcher, but the D6 shot launcher. Now these, I didn't know how good this missile launcher was, but it's only like 14 points, and it's D6 shots, strength 5, AP -1, 2 damage, and it ignores line of sight. So
Pretty good.
very solid. You should always take it if you can. I don't know why you wouldn't. I have him and then 2 Armiger Helverins. Now, Helverins, if you don't know, or if you listen to our last episode, which was about Knights, is the damage 3 autocannon Knights.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
They're good, except not when I use them most
But
of the
well,
time.
of course, you have the Warlord trait that -1 to all your rolls. So
Yeah.
when you're rolling D3 shots, Andrew's always getting that low roll.
Yeah, I mean, their average roll for their number of shots, because it's 2d3 per gun, so they have 43 shots. Their average roll is 8 shots. I was typically rolling 6 to 7 at my best, so
Nice.
not great. But the auto 3 damage is where it really sells them, because even 1 going through does serious punishment.
It hurts.
And the fact that they have a stratagem that allows them to reroll hits against things that fly, and half the game is fly, so
It's very true.
Very useful. I mean, if you go against any type of Eldari, basically everything that's not infantry flies. So,
yeah, we Space Keeblers do love our grav technology.
and that's why you get shot out of the sky.
Yep, that's what happens.
But yeah, so the Knight House I was using, now if you listen to our last episode, I took Knight Tyrannus, so I have that 6-up
The Zombie Knight!
save against normal wounds, and it's Mechanicus, so 1 CP, full strength, and it can come back to life.
So gross.
Goddamn Zombie Knight. And it, ironically, over the entire tournament, only happened in one game where I brought it back to life, and I brought it back twice.
Ugh.
Because in all of my other games, when it did die, it died in 2 of the other games, I wanted it to explode in that instance, which is like, it's kind of why the Gallant is so great, is because it's amazing in melee, but then it's also sort of like a walking nuke.
Yeah.
You just throw it at the enemy where there's the most things around it, because I did not remember that when a normal Crusader class Knight chassis explodes, it does a 2d6 range explosion, and it's d6 mortal wounds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And in one game, when it exploded, because of the stratagem that you can make it explode on a 4+, it dealt of all the units around it when it exploded a total of 27 mortal wounds, which is just like, that just paid back its points right there.
There goes a character. There goes a character. There goes a couple guys. There goes some points off of a tank.
It's in fact the way I got his Warlord, because his Warlord, this was against a Iron Warriors Mortarion and Magnus army.
Wow.
And his Iron Warriors Chaos Lord was behind a wall supporting all of his other guys, making everything fearless, and I rolled a 6 on him and just insta-killed him, and it felt so bad.
Jeez.
But yes, very good. So turns out Knight Tyrannus, if you go against Knights, if you're against Knights and it's a full Knights army and they have no way to stop you from rolling 4+ or stopping your CP, that single Knight Gallant killed an entire Knight army. Like,
yeah.
That's the only army where he came back to life twice. And I mean, because this is the ironic thing, because he was playing Knights and he had 2 Gallants, but they were House Terran, and House Terran has the stratagem that you can immediately fight again, which ironically is really bad against these Knights, because they fight immediately, you've already killed my Knight, and then at the end of the phase it comes back, and then at my turn I can charge you. Whereas if you're clever, I found out their one weakness, and I went against this was the one game I lost, is against a Chaos player. If you have a stratagem that says fight again at the end of the phase, and it's their turn, they decided the orders of operations.
There you go.
And
that's a way to get around it.
Come back to life, and then he fights me again and kills me.
Which I'm very happy that exists, because otherwise, if you don't have Agents Effect to stop the Knight from using that stratagem, you're like, well, if somebody just keeps getting lucky on their 4+ and has a lot of CP, which, guess what? A lot of Imperium armies have, like, infinite CP, thanks to all those Grand Strategists and Aquila and all that crazy stuff. Like, so it's very likely that if a Knight player is hot on their rolls, especially with a reroll, they can keep bringing that thing back.
Yep, it's really mean. It does a lot of work. So everything performed very well in my army. The Knight did crazy heavy lifting in 3 of the games. He basically was, the linchpin. If I didn't have him, I don't think I would have won. Especially against the Knight player, he basically killed his whole army. Like, just that Knight killed his whole army, because he got first turn on a board that did not have a lot of terrain, and he had 2 shooty Knights, including a Castellan. And I was like, well, this is it.
Yep.
And he shot one of the missiles with the stratagem and insta-killed one of my Slamguiniuses, and then blew both of my Helverins off the board and all this other stuff. And I was just like, that's it. All right, here we go. I even deep struck my freaking other Slamguinius, did the 3d6 charge, and failed it twice.
Oh, my God.
And I was just like, oh no. And then he, of course, got quad melted. So, I mean, that'll do it. Yeah, it's a lot of heat. It's a lot of hot guns. But he and I spoke afterwards, and ironically, it was like, he has no way. He has to basically rely on my Knight failing the 4+ to come back, or he has no way to kill him.
Yeah, because he can just infinitely punch his way through his lines.
Because I spent a lot of CP on other things, and he was like, you should have just saved all of your 17 CP or 16 CP just on the Knight. Just put everything into the Knight. He will cover everything that you need.
God.
Crazy.
Lost.
So I talked about the Knight game. Game 1 was against Tau. He was a new Tau player, and he did not have the tools to deal with the Knight, and the Knight went crazy.
Yeah.
And
Gallant just runs up. Was it just punching Riptide after Riptide in the face?
He killed, just the Gallant, killed 2 Ghost Keels, Long Strike, and a Riptide.
Oh, my
and
God.
And he threw all of them.
Oh.
So it was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm so
That's
sorry.
like so disrespectful to like kill one, just basically one ghost keel, throw it at the other ghost keel, kill that ghost keel, throw it at long strike, kill long strike, throw it at the riptide, and then punch the riptide to death.
The opposite order of the last two. It was the Riptide, then Long Strike.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was.
You love long strike to be last? You're like, you die last.
So yeah, that was Tau has problems right now. They need a big rework. That was game 1. Felt really bad.
Oof.
Game 2 was my only loss of the tournament. I was against a Demons, mainly Demons, but also then some Chaos Space Marines. He had a few Thousand Suns things. He had like Ahriman and another sorcerer.
Few Death Guard.
He had a bunch of Death Guard characters. So he had the crazy damage 3 flamers.
I think they're Foul Blight Spawns.
Foul Blight Spawns.
Yeah, they're the guys with basically the flamethrowers, the gross flamethrowers that are flat 3 damage.
Flat 3 damage.
Which, the first time I saw them, I was actually playing this same guy you played. I was like, why aren't there more of these? Like, why aren't these everywhere? They're insane.
It's a 9-inch flamer. The only downside to it, I didn't realize it's also AP -3, which is like crazy.
Well, the craziest thing, and maybe this didn't come up in your game, but surprise, surprise, I also played this guy later on in the tournament, and we'll talk about him in my seasons. But basically, these guys have an ability that anyone in the radius of, I believe, 7 inches, to align with the whole Nurgle theme, is that they always fight last when you're within 7 inches of these Foul Blightspawn dudes.
Okay.
Which is pretty gross.
So it's not exactly that. I believe it's when they overwatch with their flamer, then
okay.
they strike last.
Wow.
But they have to be within 7 inches when they overwatch with the flamer, but it's still really powerful.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
And I mean, like I said, the only weakness to this flamer is its strength is 2d6, so it's very random, but it's also a plague weapon, so it rerolls 1s to wounds, so it's like insanely good.
Yeah.
So those do work. They're scary. I have PTSD from those things. They killed my knight. Those are what killed my knight, because he just rolled like 8s and 9s for their strength,
like,
and was
flame
just like,
away.
guess what? Auto 3 damage. I was like, ah.
Just coating you in like basically
Goo.
slime and goo.
And
basically
acid
those
and
guns
crap.
from, you know, the old Data Slate Ghostbusters 2? It's basically that, just the big slime guns.
Yeah, except I imagine that it's mixed in with like stomach acid and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ugh, I don't want to think about what's coming out of those things.
Gross stuff. Now, they didn't actually finish off my knight. They just did most of the damage. He had a Skull Reaver Nurgle, he had a Skull Reaver Chaos Demon Prince. That a Corn Demon Prince.
With the
that,
big badass axe that just
Skull Reaver.
murders everything.
Yeah, Skull Reaver, which is just like, yeah, like that. It does so much damage, and it does bonus damage to Titanic, and that's when he did the fight against stratagem to basically prevent me from coming back to life. Now, so because we talked about it in the game, because this was actually like a pretty open between me and my opponent, it was like a very technical game, and we had gone through it, and he was like, I have a fight against stratagem, it's my turn, but it's at the, he was like, when's your resurrection? End of the phase. Well, my thing is at the end of the phase. I was like, oh, so I can't actually do this.
Because you're just going to counter with fight again.
Because he's just going to counter with fight again. So it was either the choice of resurrecting and then forcing him to use 3 CP to fight again, which he had so much. So it was just like, no, I'd rather just explode. So I then did the stratagem that on a 4+, I exploded, and I exploded.
Nice.
The one thing that did happen that's funny is I death gripped a Plague Burst Brawler down to 1 wound, which was really funny.
That is funny.
It broke free at the last second.
Wiggled its way out. Sneaky little crawler.
But yeah, so that was a very fun game, but my one mistake I made in the game, because it was 28-30. It was actually the highest loss I've ever had. And the one mistake I made was I didn't deploy my scouts in a way to screen my Helverins from his deep striking bloodletters, because he had
this guy had 3 deep striking bloodletter units
of 20. 60 bloodletters with 2 characters coming with them, like lots of damage, but I wasn't afraid of my Helverins dying to them. They actually don't kill Helverins very well because they're T7, but it's the fact that he can surround them and then I can never get out of combat, and therefore I can never shoot his bloodletters, because the biggest danger to his bloodletters was my Death Watch, and that cost me the game, because it essentially meant that he took my backline priority objective, and he got the bonus point for the mission 5 turns in a row, which had him beat me by 2. So like that one mistake cost me the game, and it was at turn 1, and I didn't realize it, but he did. And that's how I lost. So game 3, I had mentioned previously, was when my knight exploded and dealt 27 wounds. I was against Chaos again. And this had Morty and Magnus in the same list.
The bros hanging out.
Tag teaming duo of crazy demon Primarchs. But then he had a bunch of cultists. He had a big block of Noise Marines. He had that Forge World Whirlwind, the crazy, like...
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's like, does like auto 2 damage, and it's a very good unit, and so, an amalgam of other things. But essentially what sealed the deal in that game, I did win and I tabled him, but what sealed the deal was the knight exploding. The knight exploding, doing 27 wounds, basically killed everything in his line except for Magnus.
Jeez.
Which meant that, like, I still had all of my Death Guard or my Death Watch units, and like 1 Slamguinius and 2 captains and my other Helverings,
and
it was
plenty
just,
of
like,
shots to just bring him down.
I was like, well, because it insta-killed 3 characters. It killed 1 of his artillery pieces. It killed 3 units of cultists that were screened.
Were they just down to, like, no models?
Because it dealt 5, 6, and 6 wounds to them, and they died to
God.
leadership. So it was just
so you just rolled super hot on your explosion.
Super hot. The only person I didn't roll hot against was Magnus. I only dealt 1 wound to Magnus, but it killed so much other
But that
stuff.
boy, who cares? You
Yeah, it was
nuked
just
literally everything else.
Now, granted, in that game, I had to use my entire army and a Slamguinius, who then died eventually, against Mortarion to kill Mortarion. He was rolling 4+ invul saves like it was his job.
When you roll hot with those 4 invul like
it's
units,
crushing.
it can just destroy you from a morale perspective.
Well, especially because with Mortarion, not necessarily as much with Magnus, but with Mortarion, he has another layered save on top of that. So if he's making hot 4+, then you're like, oh my god, then he's got 5+.
At least Magnus,
after.
You get through that save, and you're just free clear.
You're
Especially
through.
with like D3 or D6 damage, you're like, woohoo!
Yeah,
just rolling those big die.
But yeah, so that was a good match, but that one knight exploding apparently was like that was the nail in the coffin. Now
go forth and explode.
It was another moment where it was like, ironically, I rolled a 6 for my explosion, and you can't do the zombie knight if you explode. I could have still re-rolled that, but I was like,
nah.
I kind of want him to explode. So that was the second instance where I wanted him to explode other than resurrect him, even though he couldn't stop it. And I was like, this is so weird. I want him to die because it's going to do so much damage.
Kill so many people.
I think when I rolled a 2d6, it was a 9-inch explosion.
Oh.
And it caught something like 12 units.
It's like bam, 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 just blowing up dudes left and right.
What's also hilarious is that 9 inches was 2 millimeters outside of my Death Watch. So it was just he just looked, and it was just one of these things where it's just like, I'm so sorry.
When was like he previously in the warp, the guy who was in this gallant, because like when he ran up, did he go, "Hello, boys, I'm back," and just blow up the knight?
Push the button. He's just like, yep.
People who know what that's from.
Yeah.
Good for you.
10 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was that game. Then I mentioned my first game of day 2 was against Knights, and we know how that went.
Yep. Went up and punched every knight in the face.
Just to punch them all.
Did he have the Paragon Gauntlet in that game?
You bet your ass he had the Paragon
sweet.
Gauntlet.
Flat 8 damage, just bam,
I mean,
bam.
going up to a regular knight that's not the Castellan, and if 3 get through, it's instant death. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a 5 attack guy hitting on 2s and then
So
wounding
nuts.
on 2s. And if other than the one knight that had the 2+ armor save, none of them get saves against the gauntlet.
Yeah, you're right. That is really just cleanly like, yeah, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Yeah, just 3 have to get through.
Now, he made one major mistake, which was he charged his Castellan and his Warden, his 2 shooty knights, into my knight, expecting the stomps. He had 11 wounds remaining, but he was expecting the stomps to be able to do enough damage to them. But the Castellan only hits on 4s, and then I still get a 5+ armor save against it, and then it's only D3 damage, and then his
And
other
your
one,
knight also special trait, doesn't it have like a 6-up feel no pain?
and it has a 6 of feel no pain against normal damage.
Yeah, that's
so it's like
the odds are not in your favor to take that thing out.
And because he did that, and I had already used the stratagem in my movement phase to make him operate at full capacity, which lasts until the beginning of my next turn.
Ooh, so he was fighting normal.
He was fighting normal. He didn't kill my knight, and it gave me a free combat phase to attack his Castellan, and I just insta-killed his Castellan.
Decimated it.
I mean, 3 or 4 of my attacks got through and dealt 32 damage, and that was just instant death.
God,
it was just like,
that's
whoa!
so crazy powerful.
Yeah, so like that was probably the moment he realized, I don't think I can win this. And then my last match was against a really good Eldari player. He was playing a list very similar to yours. The only major difference is that you have more troops and venoms, whereas he, in his Drukhari detachment, took Ravagers.
Yes, we'll have to talk about my new crazy Eldari list shortly. But and how did that game go? This was your final game. You were on table number 2.
Yes.
This was to
2.
Play for seat number 2, but
the
2 people tied.
This was for seat number 2. I was ranked 4th at this point, and going into this match, and he and I were basically fighting for 3rd, could be 2nd type of thing. But the ironic thing is if this Eldar player, because he was undefeated up until that point, if he had beaten me, he would have won the tournament.
Wow.
So this loss on his part put him out completely, and I think it dropped him to 8th or 9th place. It did not go well for him. I seized on him.
Ooh.
And after I seized on him, the knight went into his lines, dealt some damage. This was probably the least amount of damage the knight dealt, but the Helverins were super hot this game and were rolling on average 10 to 11 shots.
There we go.
And he had all of his bikes and all of his Ravagers on the board, and they just started going, and you, and you,
and just
and you.
blowing them off the table.
Now, granted, turn 1, he was like, I'm not so worried, because it took both of them to kill the one Ravager, and then the next turn, they each one-shot a Ravager, so it's just like, yeah.
All 3 Ravagers gone by turn 2. That's
No,
painful.
it was turn 3.
Oh, turn 3.
It was turn 3. I didn't actually shoot at the Ravagers turn 1 because
you were shooting at the bikes?
I was more concerned with the Harlequin bikes that had Haywire that were the biggest threat to my knight, and so I was shooting at Harlequin bikes, and he had 2 units of 3 Harlequin bikes and 1 unit of 6. I couldn't see the unit of 6 because they were way in the back, but I brought the 2 units of 3 down to 1, which was like a big deal, and I killed his transport that was carrying all of his Psychers. So, like, he no longer could just scoot them around. So they were in the danger zone, especially with the possibility of the knight exploding. So it's just like all this stuff was like going wrong. And then I took my Slamguniuses and I brought one into his lines and charged at his. This is the funny part. I tried to do a 3d6 charge at his Solitaire and failed it yet again.
Wow.
And so he was stuck there in the open. He brought up a full unit of Shining Spears, shot at him, charged him, and did not kill him.
Amazing.
And he killed all of the Shining Spears by himself in one combat.
That's incredible.
And then,
well, he didn't kill all of them, but then they failed morale and ran away.
He killed all but 2, and then they failed morale and ran away.
Basically, he wiped the unit.
He was like, no. And then he went into, he didn't go into the Solitaire, because Solitaire tried to fight my knight, which was not a great choice.
The Solitaire's good. He's good at fighting infantry. He's not great at fighting a knight, even though I'm sure he had Kegarok's Rose, which lets him reroll wounds, but you're still wounding on 6s, so...
And 15 attacks, stomps.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're hitting on 2s.
You got a 3-up invul, but you only got 5 wounds, buddy. Yeah, 2 of those get through, there's a good chance that he dies.
Yeah, so, it was, probably not the best choice. Now, the funny thing is that Slamgunius, so he did kill the entire bike squad. He also went in and, I believe, killed his Spirit Seer, his Shadow Seer. But then he died immediately afterwards to smites galore.
Yep.
Because he has no defense against that. But, so both the Slam moves are dead. My regular Death Watch came in, just started cleaning up at that point. But the MVPs, a unit of Blood Angel Scouts.
Oh, boy.
Killed not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Harlequin bikes.
That's hilarious.
They hit the first round of combat. He whiffed against me. He didn't hit with he didn't wound with any of his attacks. I didn't lose anyone.
We'll get into this in a little bit, but Harlequin bikes are not great in close combat.
And he still had 2 Zephyrglaives alive going into them, and he missed with all but 1 attack and then did not wound.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I have a chance. And I have 11 attacks with that unit, and they hit with everything, and they wounded with everything, and he failed all of his saves. And it killed all but 1 bike. And I was just like, did that really just happen? A unit of scouts, 5 scouts, just killed 3 Harlequin bikes. It was ridiculous. At that point, it was just I felt so bad for the guy because it was just everything was going wrong.
Everything went wrong. Oh my god.
Literally everything was going wrong. He was failing psychic tests. He forgot to do the double move on his Shining Spears into my knight to kill it early.
Wow.
And all this other stuff.
I mean, it sounds like Kegarok had a pretty good time in the last round of the tournament for all Harlequin players.
All right. Well, I mean, those were my games, Jay. You want to go into it?
I think we're going to move on to the Brown Library segment, right?
No, we're
going to talk about my seasons? Oh, okay. Here we go. This tournament was, by definition for me, one hell of a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So, let's get into it. So, my army first. I was taking a brand new army that I'd never played with.
Super smart.
Yeah.
It's like you learned from the best.
Yeah.
The guy
I took a page out of your book.
Who plays a new army before major tournaments like a dummy.
And doesn't practice at all. So I've forever, ever just played Eldari, Craftworld Eldar.
Yeah.
And finally I was like, you know what? After the last tournament and seeing how many freaking knights there are in the meta, and they are everywhere, and they are awesome, but they are scary for just Craftworld Eldar.
Yes.
Because, like, going up against a Castellan or multiple knights, like, just Craftworld Eldar really can't... They can
fight it, but they struggle hard.
They struggle hard, especially against Castellans and shooty knights.
4+ invul.
4+ invul that turns into 3-up invul that shoots the shit out of your planes. Like, yes, they've got Crimson Hunters. Yes, they've got Hemlocks, but they don't really do that much against a 3-up invul.
Well,
like,
and
they
also,
really
you forgot to mention something that anything that's not ghost weapons in Craftworld Eldari is Strength 8.
Strength 8, which means you're wounding on 4s against those things, which is a very big deal. And yes, Doom exists, but you can zone out those Castellans with a whole bunch of guard infantry or what have you, whatever mix of Imperium you want to throw in there, and that 24-inch Doom is a lot harder to get off.
Well, let's talk about your day one then.
Yes.
Well,
let's talk about the army real quick. So it is basically, you heard about this briefly with Andrew's recap of a Harlequin player
the
he
full
went up against.
Eldari soup.
Eldari soup. I've dipped my toe in it just as you've dipped your toe into the Imperium soup. We are deep in that soup.
It's a dirty-ass pond, I'll tell you that.
It is very dirty. So my main faction was actually Harlequins, which I was very excited about. The Clown Town is back, and for anybody who was tracking and following our Instagram as we were going through the tournament, could see how we were progressing. But basically, I had 2 big bike units of Harlequin bikes, which are what was the key change to my list in the first place to go against Knights, because Haywire is amazing, and we'll talk about that and how effective they were in a second. Each gun is D6 Haywire shots at range 24. What is not to like? And I had a Troop Master to be my HQ, and the most important linchpins of the entire army were 2 Death Jesters. Just kidding. They didn't really do much. They zoned out against Deep Strikers. That's the most they did.
I convinced him to play them for one tournament, and they will never leave the shelf again.
Make it back in again. Good old Death Jesters. They're like, but they're 45 points. It's like, cool.
They look really awesome.
They do look so cool. But then I also had a just regular Alatok Eldari detachment of basically a Warlock Skyrunner, a Farseer Skyrunner to get that Jinx and Doom flying around the table really easily with 3 Rangers to give me the battalion points. And then last but not least, I had 5 Venoms, 5 Acolyte Warrior squads with 5 Blasters, basically a Blaster in each squad. The Blasters will probably be sunsetted as well because they didn't do anything. I don't think they...
You had really bad luck with blasters.
I don't think they wounded literally anything. And if they did, somebody made their invul save.
You rolled lots of 1s and 2s with blasters.
It was hilarious. Almost every time I went to roll them, I was like, here we go. And then, nope, 1 or 2.
You've brought back your curse of the single weapon.
Yes, the single weapons, it does not work for me. It just never has. But basically, I also had 2 Archons. One of them basically having that, generate CP on a 6-up and anytime anybody uses a command point. So that was my army. Basically, I had the Black Heart for my Drukhari because you got to get that Agents of Vect in there.
Also, 6-up field no pain to vehicles. Very
strong. Is pretty good. So basically, my 5 Venoms and my Acolyte Warriors were acting as basically my troop clearing. My Harlequin bikes also do some solid troop clearing, but they're there for taking down knights and vehicles. And then my Rangers are there to screen. So I liked the list a lot and wanted to see how it went. So let's talk about the games. So game 1, I went up against Thousand Suns, which was a pretty good game. It was, I think, Hammer and Anvil. I turtled up behind a big line of sight blocking piece of terrain. He had a Castellan, Magnus, Ahriman, a whole bunch of horrors, Demon Princes, kind of the standard Thousand Suns fare. He castled up, and turn 1, I gave him turn 1 for him to come at me. He didn't. He kind of stayed back, and I was like, okay, interesting. I deep struck. I actually put both of my bike units, my Harlequin bikes, into Webway Strike, which is basically like the Webway portal for Harlequins, which is key to a lot of my games. I'll talk about it. But putting those 2 bike units, which is why there were a lot of Harlequin players out there that I saw the Harlequin bikes throughout the tournament, and a lot of them were running 3 units of them, and some of them in smaller groupings of 3 or 4. but I'm a big believer of 2 big units of 6,
Yeah.
so you can put both in deep strike.
Jay and I had a long tactics discussion about this, and that was the consensus we came to. Is it just better to put the eggs in a basket that can be guaranteed protected?
And with a 24-inch range, if they deep strike 9 inches away from the
put them
enemy,
anywhere.
they can put them anywhere and still take down the targets they need to hit. And
24 range is plenty.
That worked beautifully because basically turn 2 they came in, they took out the Castellan, and then Magnus came out turn 2, and all my Venoms with Doom and Jinx killed Magnus.
Yeah, you managed to get Doom and Jinx off.
Oh, actually, correction. I didn't get Doom off, but I got Jinx off, and that was enough. With all the poison shots,
Yeah,
it took down Magnus. And after that, that was pretty much the game.
Yeah, because even if he gives him the 3-up, bumping him back to a 4-up, I mean, like, it's like over 100 poison shots. It's just too much.
It's so much.
It's just too much.
So game 2, I had a mirror match, which I was really nervous about for, again, the second time I've ever played this army, playing almost an exact mirror match of my army. But he was running Ravagers while I was running Venoms. That was like the big differentiator, and his bikes were of different groupings. But basically because of that, I had a lot more troop clearing capability, and that's what Harlequin bikes are really afraid of. Harlequin bikes, if you don't know, they're -1 to hit. They have 3 wounds apiece, and they have a 4 invul, so they're really hard to dislodge from like big, scary attacks.
They are a very resilient, very well-costed, good unit.
Oh my god,
They're
so
just-
good. 45 points.
They're fantastic.
And basically, I, with all my Venom, managed to kill more of his bikes. And because how I deployed, I had more units than him. So I was putting Venoms out and things like that. And he was castling up a lot of his units because they're fast, just like my army. So he's putting them in the back, waiting for me to put my stuff up a little bit more forward. He put his bikes on the board. And I waited till the very end after he placed his bikes to then put mine webway. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. And then sure enough, so he can't shoot my bikes, but I can shoot his. Turn 2, I drop in, blow a bunch of stuff off the table, shoot his Ravagers with my bikes, which my Harlequin bikes love. I don't have a lot of vehicles, so well, I guess the Venoms I do, but I shot most of them off the board.
You have a lot of vehicles that are just so flimsy that you don't care about them.
Yeah, you don't
very
really
much.
care,
And there's
yeah.
5 of them, so it's like...
But basically, through attrition and many, many poison shots, I managed to take out that army. So I had 2 wins at this point.
Getting a little big-headed.
Get a little big-headed. Well, not big-headed, but I was very much like, oh my god, what's going on?
Sorry, not yet big-headed.
Not yet. We'll talk about that soon. Third game of the day, I go up against Knights. 5 Knights.
Shit in his pants.
I'm very afraid of this because this is also like the nightmare that I was just like, oh, Knights, so many Knights. And to top it all off, by the way, all of these have been great players. I had 5 wonderful games at this tournament. It was a 5-game tournament. But basically the last game of the day, I'm up against 5 Knights, my nightmare. There's a Castellan in there with the flamethrower.
Your nightmare?
Yes, my nightmare. Wah, wah. And this is the Castellan with the flamethrower, which I am terrified
it's the
of.
Valiant.
Yeah.
The Valiant.
And this Valiant, right, that's the Castellan is the shooty one, right?
Yeah, it's the Dominus class, and you either have a Castellan or you have a Valiant.
Right. I keep calling them all Castellan, the big 28 wound ones, but you're right. Yes, the Valiant. So the Valiant had the flamethrower and the big spiky shot.
Which, of course, is the relic flamethrower that rerolls all wounds, because why wouldn't you
And
have
it's
that?
so terrifying, especially for an army that's relying on -1 to hit and all those Eldar shenanigans. So he was just going to just melt all of my bikes. So he gets to pick deployment. And sure enough, on this table, to add insult to injury, there was there was 2 corners that had a lot of cover and 2 corners that had nothing. Well, we got Vanguard, and he got to pick, and we were both setting up in the 2 areas that had no cover. So I was like,
because he's Knights.
damn it!
And you're not.
So I'm basically deploying on Planet Bowling Ball, no cover whatsoever. And I'm like, I've got to go first. Or I'm dead. I win the roll-off, and sure enough, a lot of haywire, manages to kill a lot of Knights. And by taking down the Valiant, the flamethrower first, and positioning myself in such a way, and with the -1s to hit, and doing enough damage, poison shot, if you doom a Knight and you throw poison on it, you can actually get enough 6s to do some real damage.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to chip through eventually.
And after multiple turns, I brought down 5 Knights. And by the way, I say 5 Knights. There were 4 big Knights. One of them was a Valiant, and the last one was a Helverin.
Yeah.
The Helverins are scary, though. 3 damage, they kill my bikes real fast.
Yep, auto 3 damage is scary for things with 3 wounds.
But at the end of day 1, I was #1 seat in the tournament.
Big-headed.
I was very surprised.
We've hit the point of he was super big-headed.
You keep saying big-headed. I wasn't running around being like, I'm the best, but I was very surprised.
There was mentions of being in first place, and there was a good chance that he was going to run away with the tournament.
I was freaking out. I was like, how the hell did this happen?
You went against the things you were most afraid
of.
Your
Thousand Sun Smite. I was afraid of all the Imperial Knights. I was afraid of a mirror match.
So it was like you got through the 3 worries, and you were like, man, I'm in first place.
I can't believe this.
What is going on?
But then sure enough, don't worry, folks, because this brings us to day
Karma
2. And
is
if
a
anyone followed
bitch.
how the tournament ended up, Kegorok he was setting up his punchline. He had the setup, he had all the bits in the middle, and he was ready to hit me with it. And that brings us to day 2.
You were waiting for the prestige.
Yeah.
It came hard.
It did. So day 2 rolls around, the last day of the tournament, and I'm actually playing at the top table against the demon player who you lost to in round 2.
Yes.
So I had, you and I had discussed the night before.
His name is Richard. He's a very good player.
Very good player. I think top demons player in the world?
One
of them.
I don't want to be wrong about that. He's at least one of the top demon players in the country. He's definitely one of the top demon players in the world.
He's really solid, and I've played him before when he just had Nurgle. I'd never played this list before, and I think to his own credit, this was a newer list for him, and he was doing great with it.
Yes.
But this is where my first C's comes in. So much like Andrew got caught off by the bloodletters, I too was caught off by them. So now I knew going into this that I was going to have to zone out against this guy. And I did. I zoned out, except for one area, and also I didn't realize how far bloodletters could pile in to capture another unit. And I didn't think he would be able to... I always think him capturing a unit, he has to get entirely around a unit with his bloodletters. No. Just got to get around one guy.
Yep.
You pin one guy in the unit, that's it. That's curtains.
As long as that one guy can't get his base through, you are solid.
And I want to talk about this because I think this is a great learning lesson for anybody who isn't familiar with these tactics. I don't play a lot of combat players, and I think this is just the fact that you and I, when we play each other, we tend to play more shooty armies.
Yep.
But we don't play a lot of people that are very technically good at combat.
Or if you play against me, I'm playing with... My combat would be like single models or single big models.
Exactly, but not typically these combat big units.
Combat blobs.
Like for these combat players, like kudos, this is like, it's a very technical and very strategic and powerful move that they can do with these combat units. Essentially, what this Bloodletter Bomb does is he drops in and he targets a unit. He's going to kill that unit. But he only charges and declares a charge against one unit. Because what he's really trying to do is, with that 3d6 charge, because with all 3 Bloodletter units, I didn't know you could do this, which I'm surprised that we had to wait until now for this to show up. I thought you could only do it to one unit. You can do it to as many units as one. You can give them the icon, and you can give the special, the blood icon,
the
or
blood
whatever
banner.
it is, the blood banner, to all 3 of these units. So every unit, when they drop in, they have a +1 to their charge.
Because of the instrument.
Because the instrument, and they have 3d6. You could do this to all 3 for 20 bloodletters per unit. That's amazing.
It is a once per game ability, but it's just 1 CP to give them a blood banner, and I mean it's a 3d6 charge, and they need an 8.
I was like blown away when he explained to me this, and I think you had told me because we were talking about it the night before. I was like, why doesn't everybody do this with demons? Like, this is amazing. So basically, how this unit works is it comes in and charges, and it'll kill the first thing it goes after. But what it's really trying to do is maximize the most distance it can get on that charge, because what it's really aiming for is not the unit it's charging, the next unit behind it. Because if it doesn't declare a charge against the next unit behind it, it can't attack it, which means it can't kill it, which it doesn't want to.
Yes.
What it's doing is it's charging in, and it's hoping for, like, you can on average get a 12, because on average you're getting an 11 or 12 with a +1 to their advance. They can get a 12 or 13 on average.
Yeah.
So what he did was I zoned out, but I didn't zone out far enough of my units from each other. I completely forgot how far they could go, and what he did was, with both Bloodletters on turn 2, he dropped in, one targeted a Venom, which I wanted. I wanted the Venom to be the target because in case it survived, it didn't. Surprise, 1 billion attacks. It could at least fly away. The other one, he targeted a Ranger unit, which I was like, fine, the Rangers are just going to die. What I completely forgot to do was have the very next unit, which I could, because zoning, you can have all your units very far away and still cover enough territory. I needed to have them like 12 inches away from the next unit, because the first guy when you make a charge is the only guy that has to get closer to the unit that you charge.
To the target, yes.
Everybody else can move wherever the heck they want.
Yep.
Within the range that you roll. So if he rolls a 13 on his charge, one guy's got to go into that charge. The rest of them can fan out 13 inches with that charge. And basically what he did is both unit ran past the unit they were going for. Some piled in or consolidated so they would get closer to the unit they're charging, but still get farther beyond it, so that when they consolidated, they could consolidate into my next unit that was too close and trap it.
Yep.
And how I had my one unit. He trapped one whole unit. He got completely around it, which was bad positioning on my part. The other one, I just had one ranger too close, and he just got, I think, 3 guys, 1 in front and 2 around the side of that one ranger. He didn't even have the whole ranger unit trapped, just the front guy. That's all you need. You don't need to trap the whole unit.
He's not fighting him.
Just one guy. And he can't attack him because he didn't charge him. And that's basically it. Because at that point, my turn, he kills him on my turn, and I can't shoot his bloodletters. And then on his turn, they continue to just pile into my lines, clearing stuff out. Now, I did some good work that game. I killed a bunch of stuff. I killed a bunch of characters. We made it a decent game. But that one mistake, that big seize, because I just haven't played enough of these technical combat armies.
Which is the same seize I had.
Yeah.
Which is just he knew the combat game better than we did, and he made us pay for it.
And I mean, I love those type of games because you learn so much. I took so much away from that game, and I was actually really happy with that loss because of what I walked away with. Because I will never forget that type of zoning.
It's one thing I didn't realize as well that gives a lot more utility to the stratagem, even though it's a 3 CP stratagem to fight again, because that stratagem gives you a second pile-in.
Yeah.
And that second pile-in, even if you're piling into something that, this is the thing I didn't realize with some Genestealer players, is that you use it so that even though you, like, say you kill a vehicle, a transport, and the unit comes out, you didn't declare charge against that unit, so you can't kill it. But you don't want to.
You don't want to. You just want to wrap it and trap it.
You do the 3 CP stratagem because you've already done the pile in after the vehicle exploded, and then you do the 3 CP stratagem and pile in again, and you go and grab that unit. You can't fight it. They can fight you. Who the hell cares? You're now locked in combat, and you can't get shot.
It's a very, very important move. And of like a lot of the seizes we've done, this is one that I would highly recommend you listeners, if you don't know about this already, really think about it. When you run into these Genestealer blobs, these bloodletter bombs, like, this is the move they're doing.
Yes.
Make sure you are properly, like, super spaced out from the next unit that you're using to screen them out. So that was my first seize of the tournament. Now, I was happy with that loss because I learned a lot, and I think I was my last game was on table 3. I still had a chance to be in the top 5, let alone I could be at basically second or third, depending on how Andrew did in the next table.
Yeah, going into the last round, I was ranked 4th, Jay was ranked 5th, so if he had won his last game as well, then it would have come down to points of him and I battling for 3rd place, basically.
Yeah, and I was feeling really good about it because the game I was going into was a rematch against the guy who actually prompted my change of an army in the first place to getting more haywire, was our good buddy Jason, who, if you didn't listen to last episode, I talked about how he basically tabled me.
He was the first person to table you.
The only person to table me in 8th edition was Jason, and this was like sweet vengeance, because his entire army is mostly vehicles. It's some crazy Forge World Knight.
It's called the Knight Styrex.
The Knight Styrex got a big flamethrower. He's got 4 little robots with the many billion shots from Adeptus Mechanicus. He's got 3 Dune Crawlers. He's got Call.
And if I'm wrong about this, if it's the Styrex or the Majira or Magaira, it's the Knight that has not the Lightning Canton, but the Volkite Chirovile.
Yeah.
Is that one.
And he's got like 30 conscripts, but basically this is an army that we've talked about before. Jason is very good with. He's been like leveraging forever. He's well experienced with it.
So few AdMech players.
And he's really good with it. But I was feeling pretty confident because I had a billion haywire shots.
Big head.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where Kegarak turned on the punchline. Because it wasn't that last game. It was this one. So he was waiting for it.
The funny thing is that, as we've mentioned, I am notorious for having hilariously bad rolls. Jay and I were next to each other. We were at simultaneous, we
were side by side because you were table 2 and I was table 3.
We were at adjacent tables, and my game went all in my favor, which I think Jay just passively absorbed all of my bad rolls.
Like, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to walk you through this. This has been, and I'm going to talk about, by the way, the things that I screwed up on, because I screwed up a lot in this game, but holy crap, the dice rolls were unbelievable.
Well, you made bad decisions, and then
I made a lot of bad decisions.
You made bad decisions, but then the odds just punished you much further.
Oh my god. It was like you were right next to me. You got to like watch me slip into madness for the next 2 hours.
I only heard some of it, but it got to a point where Jay's rolls were so bad that he was just cackling.
I was laughing
maniacally.
And honestly, I think this is perfect for somebody who played Harlequins because this is basically Kegorok breaking me to turn me into his perfect clown warrior. But like it was truly madness. But let me get into it. So I will say this. This is definitely, I lost this game. This was my fault. Dice rolls were hilariously bad, and we'll talk about a few of them.
It's a dice game.
But I lost this game because I went into this game with the wrong mentality. I went in with this game thinking, I've got Haywire, he's got a bunch of vehicles. I feel really confident about this. I was way too confident. So, game starts. Hammer and Anvil. Now, this terrain set for Table 3 didn't have a lot of terrain. It was almost Planet Bowling Ball, not exactly. It had like one terrain piece in the center.
Yeah,
one kind of terrain piece in the back.
My only one major criticism for this tournament, and this is not a knock on Chad who runs the tournament, is just that there was so much going on.
There's so many tables.
I wish he and the judges had paid better attention to the top 4 tables, because if there's the 4 tables that you should pay attention really to what is cover-wise on the table, it's the top 4, because my game one on day 2 was on 4th table against 4 knights. And that basically was Planet Bowling Ball.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. So yeah, continue, please.
Yeah, no, of course. And so very low cover on this table, which he's got an entire gunline army.
Yep.
1 billion shots. But I was still feeling good about it.
Robots and onagers.
Too good, some might say. So I had a plan. I was going to deep strike my Haywire bikes, which I did. I put them in deep strike. They were going to drop in, blow up his knight, of course. My Solitaire, instead of giving him the Kegorok's Rose relic, you can give him a relic called the Star Mist Raiment, which gives him a 3 of Invul. He has it already. But the real key is, if he advances and charges, he cannot be overwatched.
Yep.
Which is really key, because my plan was to run him straight into the little robots with 1 billion shots, his 4 robots, and tie him up. And
forever.
They can't leave and shoot. So if I get him into combat once, they're just shut down. And that would shut down a huge damage output from his army, while my bikes go around and kill Dune Crawlers and everything else.
Yep.
Good plan. I immediately screw it all up by not paying attention to my deployment. Because again, I didn't take this as seriously as I should have. I underestimated my opponent, which was an idiot move. And I got on the table.
You underestimated the guy who tabled you.
Yes,
Jay.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking. I was literally insane at that point. So my first deployment, we have this, I think it's Pointy Hammer and Anvil. He deploys back.
Yeah, Spearhead, I think.
Spearhead. I put a Venom down on the table, not in the very back. I put it towards the front of my deployment.
You mean like right in range of his robots?
Right in range of his robots and everything. I put my second Venom down, also towards the front. And then it isn't until after I place my third Venom that I go, what am I doing? He's going to get the +1, and I'm giving him multiple units to kill. And I still need to kill those 30 conscripts that are out in this front screen, and that's what the Venoms were for. Like, they would do it great. And I didn't need to. I could have put him in the back. They would have been safe. Yeah. In fact, he took old school. All I needed to do is put him in the back and deny his kill strike, his first strike. Like, I was out of my mind.
You have a 16-inch move with a 36-inch range.
Oh, my God. It was just... This is just the beginning. So, first off, then afterwards, I'm like, oh, my God. And I start putting everything in the very far back. But already I've put 3 Venoms out front with 3 Acolyte units in there. Surprise, surprise, he kills all 3 in the first round.
He was probably like, does he know something
he even said after I placed him, he was like, I don't know why you did that, but I'm glad you did. And I put my guys on the webway strike, and I put all my characters in this little building to jump up into the center to then hopefully get my Solitaire into his lines. So I'm all set up. Of course, he wins the roll-off, of course, because he's the +1. And the game begins. And I forget to deploy all my Rangers. I have 3 units of Rangers that infiltrate, and I forgot to deploy all of them. Now, this wasn't like a moment where it was like a turn later or like the beginning of turn 1 and he had started rolling or started moving guys. And I was like, oh, I forgot my Rangers. And he was like, no, you can't place them. That didn't happen at all. Jason's a stand-up guy. I literally didn't remember that I didn't place my Rangers until like I think turn 4 or something like this.
You mean the 3 units of snipers that could kill his psychers?
So Haywire hungry. Corn was just deep in my brain, like, yes, kill the knight.
Jay went back to his bloodthirsty ways.
I completely lost focus and didn't deploy 180 points of my army, 3 freaking units. Like, that is inexcusable.
And 3 units of snipers to kill the characters that ironically did.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Dot.
Some bad stuff. So let's get to that. So Turn 1, he obliterates like 6 units. He kills 3 Cabalites and 3 Venoms that I just fed him because I'm a moron. So he gets kill more. He runs his conscripts up the board, so he gets hold more to grab the little objective in the middle, because I think it was the 3 objective game with the one in the center. And already I'm feeling like an idiot, but I'm like, it's okay. I can pull this back. We still got the plan. I throw my Solitaire into the central building, right there near his conscripts, but not too close. He's close enough that if I blitz him next turn, he's getting right into the robots. He can't do anything about it. I've got a perfect plan. I throw my Solitaire up into the center building. I turtle up. My turn 1 is done. I'm ready to go. His turn 2. He moves his guys around. He tries to shoot at a couple things. They're out of range because I've done the actual right move this time. But he does something that I didn't count on. He's got these little Primaris Psychers. Little Primaris Psyker runs up into the building where my Solitaire is and smites the shit out of my Solitaire. I think he got like the 12 or like the 11 where he can do like the D6. Got the Solitaire down to 2 wounds. Then his conscripts, the shitty conscripts, only a few of them could see the Solitaire, shoots at him and manages to whittle him down to 1 wound. They end up charging him. They don't kill him, luckily. Oh my God. He kills a bunch of conscripts afterwards, but that's it. But still, now my Solitaire is at 1 wound. This is bad.
No longer survivable.
Because now if he gets into the close combat with the robots, they'll probably just punch him to death. He's only got 1 wound with a 3 of Binvol. That's not amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty worried that my one plan is kind of screwed at this point, but I'm like, all right, I got to still ride this out. My bikes drop in. My Farseer moves up, throws the Doom on the big knight. Doom goes off. And his Primaris Psyker, the one that just smited my Solitaire, is in deny range. I can't, and I measured. I tried to keep the Farseer out, but the Primaris Psyker was in deny range. I roll a 10 for Doom. He rolls an 11 for the frickin' deny and stops Doom. And I was like, okay, it's okay. Because luckily, I hedged my bets. I put both Haywire units within range of the knight. I was thinking about splitting it, putting the other unit near the robots, because I knew the robots weren't going to be stopped by the Solitaire anymore. But luckily, I put them both near the knight. I'm like, it's fine. I've got more shots now. I roll 66 for the Haywire shots for the first unit. I think I get like 11 shots, which, guess what? The averages say I should get 21 shots.
Yeah.
So that's bad. The Haywire shots go badly after that for hitting and wounding. I've got my second unit. It fires. It does terribly. I only do 10 wounds to the knight after all of my Haywire fires into it. This is basically the end of the game. Because, like, at this point, my dice rolls go so horribly that the Haywire doesn't do enough. Like,
you've already made bad mistakes, and then
bad
the dice
mistakes
was
have already
like
happened.
The nails in the coffin.
The Solitaire the same turn charges into the robots. He gets close enough to one of the characters, so I tie up the character too. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just kill this character as well. I won't put any attacks into the robots. I'll just kill this character. Instead, in my close combat phase, I charge my bikes that did nothing to the knight into the conscripts. They managed to make the charge. I fight with them first. He interrupts with one little shitty guy, like I think he's a company commander, attacks and kills the Solitaire. I use a CP reroll for the save. I fail it again. Solitaire dies. And that, folks, is basically the game. The rest of the game, again, I have another round of shooting at the knight. Doesn't kill it. The Haywire bikes do not kill this knight, which they should flat out do. And I got doomed the second time around. And then at the end of the game, it got to a point where my Venoms were blowing each other up. I rolled multiple explodes results on my Venoms. They were blowing up. They were killing all my characters around them. That was the point where Andrew was looking over and I was literally laughing because I had just gone completely insane at how crazy this game had gone.
Yeah, my game had basically been over at that point. I looked over and I believe even your troop master died in Overwatch, the conscripts, and it was just like, what is happening?
And by the end of the game, with his move and everything, I didn't get tabled, but I survived with one guy left.
You're just an Archon. Just your Warlord Archon.
Just my Warlord Archon. Just hanging out the back. Don't kill me. And that was the game. It was crazy. I look back on it and like I made all the wrong moves. I completely underestimated his army, even though I had Haywire. Like, I mean, dice is dice. Sometimes it goes wrong.
Dude, but you literally like, you didn't just bomb your deployment.
And I didn't even place 3 of my units.
You super bombed your deployment.
Like, I mean, the first game that I talked about with the Demons, that's a good seize, right? That's where we make a mistake, and that's where we talk about ways that we can learn from it. This is just like, don't be an idiot.
Were you like drinking or something?
No, I just lost my mind. Literally, Kegorok sprinkled his laughing god magic on me and was just like, "This is where I make you my disciple forever." And I am. I'm forever obviously pledging
you're insane.
to Kegorok because he's made me completely insane at this point thanks to that game. But again, through the whole time, Jason, as he was last tournament, was an excellent player. I say, like, dice rolls went bad and I was an idiot, but also this wouldn't have been possible if Jason wasn't such a competent general and amazing with his moves and his technical, his movements with his army. So kudos to Jason again. My vengeance is even deeper now to beat that army. But great tournament, a lot of lessons learned. But man, what a roller coaster ride from day 1 to day 2 for me.
Yeah, it's so funny that at the end of day 1 that you had a very good chance of winning, and if I hadn't made that one mistake, I would have as well. And I ended day 2 way better than I thought I would. I just wanted to make top 5, like that was my goal, and to be fighting for second place was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that last game against that poor Eldar player that could have had number 1. I mean, it was you guys were just like, something was sucking the Eldar juice.
Kegorok was just like, no, and just shut it all down.
Because they were adjacent to each other on opposite sides, ironically, and it was just like, man, it's just going so wrong for Eldari right now.
We both went insane, I guess.
Like maybe because Jeff was at the top table, and he just sucked all the juice.
Saved all the Eldar juice. 'Cause he did great. But yeah, that was, and again, kudos to Jeff Poole and Richard Kozart. Jeff Poole, congrats on winning Hammer of Wrath. Not winning, Jeff won, but he came in second. They both tied. It was a close game.
Tied top table.
But
thanks.
Congrats on both 1 and 2.
Thanks to Chad for hosting a great tournament.
Yeah, amazing. Looking forward to going to next month's tournament to see how that goes now that I have a little bit more experience with this list.
Some humility, maybe?
Some humility, for sure. Blasters are coming out of that list. Goodbye, Blasters. And if anything, I learned... maybe
5 more Death Jesters.
Yeah, of course. Way more. Well, of course, as we all know, you can... Death Jesters is the only unit that can exceed the rule of 3. They've ruled it in there. They're like, Death Jesters? Yeah, you can take as many as you want.
It's too cool for rule of 3.
No one's going to take them, so sure, go ahead. Death Jesters. Eat your heart out. But yeah, those were our games. And before we step into the Brown Library, I think after having a tournament under our belts of both of us playing with 2 soup armies.
Yes.
There's one thing that we didn't talk about at the very beginning of the episode, we wanted to chat about real quick here, is that
a possibility for chapter approved.
An episode 50 wish, as you will, for chapter approved, or even the next FAQ, the big FAQ, hopefully, if they do a round 2, that comes out, I think in September is the next one.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping for chapter approved because then it'll affect LVO.
Yep.
Which is important to us.
But there's kind of this thought, and Andrew and I have discussed, of like, how can you kind of limit some of the bigger shenanigans that are out there? Now, we love competitive play, and we really enjoy trying to figure out like the most crazy and insane and optimal lists, but we do see that there are some armies that are struggling.
Well, we also went through 7th edition.
Which
was so hard to win at all costs. That was just like...
And we know there's some armies out there that struggle with, because they're like a single codex, they don't have allies they can soup with. Orcs, although orcs are probably going to be amazing from everything we hear.
I mean, even Tyranids, like, yeah, you can, unless you completely bend your morals and grab Tyranids, Genestealer Cult, and Guard, and the only Guard you have is just the battery.
Says the 2 players who just did some evil soup stuff.
Yes. I mean, we dipped our toe in.
We dipped our toe into that soup.
It's the pool's a little dirty, so our wish is that in chapter approved, hopefully, they make it so that your primary detachment is the only detachment that you can use relics and stratagems for an army.
Yeah, and I think it would go a long way to applying a lot of balance, because you can still take those other mixes. And by the way, we're suggesting something that would break both of our lists that we've created.
Yes, totally destroy them.
And I know that with my Harlequin army, I would only be able to use Harlequin stratagems, and that means I wouldn't be able to use Agents of Vect.
Yep.
That means I wouldn't be able to use the Eldar stratagems.
I mean, like an important one, Seer Council.
Seer Council. Can't use that to buff my Warlock or my Farseer. For you, I mean, it would completely remove your stratagems for your Knight, which is huge.
Well, I mean,
your stratagems for your Blood Angels.
It removes a detachment completely, which is the Blood Angels. I could still use the Knight, but here's the thing. Like, after using the Knight against another Knight player and having a 4+ invul that goes to a 3 that he can't stop, and then it also comes back to life, it's too much.
It's a lot.
It's just too much.
Now, if you're just running knights and you just want to run that, then sure, go for it.
Sure, but then you won't have a
mixing
CP
in the
battery.
Blood Angels, mixing in the CP battery, and that's the other thing too we've talked about is like the CP batteries that are out there where like
it's too much.
You can just get like 30 command points. It's like, what's the point of having a resource like command points when it's just basically infinite?
Also, yeah, I mean, like, also the game is about stratagems. Stratagems is what defines armies and how you use them, and like, when you can just use infinite stratagems, it's just too much.
So our big wish would be maybe just pick one faction, and that's where you get your relics and your stratagems from, which I think would be good.
Doesn't limit your allies.
It doesn't limit your allies. You can still bring all your fun toys, but now they're not super buffed by everything else.
Can't take, I mean, and this is what he mentioned with Tower Necrons. They can only at maximum get 3 relics and just their stratagems, whereas almost every other army in the game, like I was running 3 armies with how many relics? I have 5 relics.
Jeez.
And, you know, like, what, 60 stratagems because it's 3 books of stratagems and like
and infinite CP.
2 CP batteries.
And you weren't even using the Imperial Guard one, which like we've heard of games where like they just don't run out. They spend like 30 CP in a game.
I was still using one that's a double 5+ for every stratagem I use, which is already too much, and it's just like,
and the stratagems are there, like the CP expense is there to limit such powerful combos. Like the reason why Blood Angel captains are amazing is because you can like D3 attacks, you can bring it back to life, you can stratagem, but that would be balanced if they didn't have infinite stratagems behind them.
I mean, the point of the stratagems is that it's supposed to be a big decision for when you use them, and when you just don't run out of CP, you're just like stratagem, just
throwing them left and right. So that would be our big wish. If there's like at least like I guess a secondary wish would be at least limit the CP regen that an army can do to one thing, whether it's one relic, one warlord trait. Like the fact that you can stack, like if I use a stratagem and you can, like if I use a 3 CP stratagem and you roll 6 dice and can potentially get like 6 CPs back from my stratagem, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I will say the one tangential thing that's sort of a part of the one detachment stratagems ability is that you should think GW of a way to rebalance Agents of Vect, because if that change happens and you can only take the stratagems from one army and there are single stratagems that are so important, Agents of Vect becomes so much more powerful. Because ironically, that's the only way I can stop Agents of Vect in the army I'm playing currently is I just have too many stratagems that they don't know which one to use it for.
Right. I will say that being someone who used Agents of Vect, it does run out fast when you use it a bunch. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but that would be like kind of our wish to add some additional balance to the game. It'll actually make it a lot more fluffier, which we're big on. Now, you don't have to agree with us, obviously. Like, look, we'll play whatever, regardless of how it nets out. But it would be cool. I think about it a little bit. I think it would really make for some interesting army choices.
And making your primary, like, actually more important to you.
Absolutely.
It's good.
And you would no longer have that 180 point, like, just guard add-on. I think as of right now, I think Nova or some big tournament has just happened this past weekend or is about to happen next weekend. But, like, I think they were talking about at the Invitational, there's, like, half or more than half are, like, guard CP batteries or, like, the Castellan with guard and Blood Angels. Like, it's pretty wild right now.
Almost every Imperial army has, or at least 50% of them that we've seen, has a single House Raven, Castellan, and the CP battery. Like, almost every one. When that's included in every Imperial army, it's too far.
But we'll put our soapbox away. Let's blow off the smoke, throw it back in the closet.
Getting Riptide Wing flashbacks.
Oh my god. And now we move on to the Brown Library. All right, here we are in the nice Brown Library. My soul feels better getting all of that off my chest. I mean, I'm insane now, so
you don't have a soul,
that.
Jay.
Oh, I don't?
No.
What was that thing that felt like I was getting off my chest?
Probably your soul.
Oh, wait, did I lose it? Oh, man, Kegarok took my soul, too?
Well, I mean, at least you can't, like... No, you're not going to get eaten by Slaanesh because you're not... I guess you are, kind of. This is weird. This is a weird situation with, like, Eldari and human and both.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that nets out. But anyways... Let's talk about a crazy army list. For anyone new to the show, in our Brown Library segments, we talk about a list that Andrew has crafted this month. And what are we talking about this month, Andrew?
How jerky can I be?
Oh, boy.
So this month we're in honor of Tooth and Claw in
Ooh.
that release. Not Space Wolves, because screw those puppies.
Aww.
We're going the other side for the Emperor, the real one, the four-armed Emperor.
Oh, no.
We are playing with some Genestealer Cult. Now, we don't have any access to any of their new rules or anything.
We don't.
This is going straight from Index, and this is pure Cult. Nothing else.
Just Genestealer Cult?
Just Cult.
Oh, baby.
All right, so here we go, diving in. Now, to give you a little bit of a background of Genestealer Cult, so Genestealers, very in line with their name, they don't really steal genes, they more inject genes.
Gross.
Like, as in not Levi's, as in like
Oh, they don't. They're not like a weird Santa Claus that just shows up like, here you go, and
No.
just leads them under your, your chimney.
No, they all have a very xenomorphic proboscis
Gross.
that injects their genetic material into humans and can inject it into other things like orcs and stuff like that, but it works best with humans. Ironic.
Oh, man, I'd love to see it in orcs.
I have seen an awesome stand-in or Genestealer Cult army,
That would be an amazing model run.
and it was really cool.
Holy crap, that's
all
amazing.
all of the knobs had crab claws instead of power claws.
Sweet.
It was really great. You should look it up. But yeah, so they inject this material into humans, and then over generations, it causes Genestealer Cult mutants. Now, the interesting thing about this affliction is that it works in the reverse order that you think it would. So the first generation of an infected person, meaning a person that's not been infected by it, but their offspring.
Yeah, basically that person who gets infected, they have a kid, and this kid...
Called Patient Zero's kid. This kid is actually the most mutated. That's the funny thing about this.
It's got like that weird like bulbousy thing on the front of its head.
They look very similar to Genestealers at this stage. And I mean, they have extra arms. They have, chitinous or chitinous plating sticking out of their skin in places. Like a lot of the things like we talked about previously, like aberrants and stuff like that, they're very first and second generation.
And I mean, they say 2-year-olds are monstrous, am I right?
But it's when you get into those teenage years, right? That's when the third arm appears.
Baby, that third arm. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. But seriously, they're terrifying.
Yeah, they're terrifying. And so after multiple generations, so first and second generation tends to have the most mutations, but then as they go, you get the fourth generation, and they're almost indistinguishable from humans.
Look like regular dudes.
But here's where the craziness happens, because the offspring of the fourth generation are full-blown Genestealers.
Which is, man, what a surprise in the hospital that day.
Yeah, well, you think at that point, like, they're so deep into the cult that, like, that's what they want. They're like, my child is pureborn type of thing.
And that's the pure strain Genestealers,
Those
right?
are cut that out. Yes, those are pure strain Genestealers, are the ones that are born after the fourth generation.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Kill everybody.
So yeah, typically a Genestealer cult is started by usually one Genestealer that happens to break off from a swarm, or because they're vanguard organisms. They are sort of like the infiltrators, the special forces of Tyranids, and they'll go off, and if they are alone, they will suddenly, like, some latent DNA will activate, and they'll become very smart, they'll become psychically active, and they will suddenly learn like all of the ins and outs of the society they're within.
Jeez.
And they typically roost in an area deep, like they like hive cities because it's really easy to
You say
hide.
roost, and now I'm just imagining a Genestealer just making like a nice little nest.
They do.
moving
I
some
mean,
twigs.
it's got a little throne on it and stuff like that.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's adorable.
So he's called the Patriarch, and he's essentially the brood progenitor. He's the one that starts the cult typically, and then under him are 3 leaders. Typically, you have the Primus, who is the military leader of the cult. You have the Magus, who's the spiritual leader of the cult. He's their psychers, and he's like very much like a combination of a commissar and a Parameris psyker, where he's not only got latent psychic powers, but he's like, you will praise the four-armed emperor, our patriarch. He's our leader. He's awesome.
He's great. Look at him up there in his nest.
And then the third is typically what's the morale leader of the Genestealer cult, which is the Acolyte Iconward.
Now, you say morale leader, but you really mean hype man.
Hype man, yes.
Oh, yeah!
He's got this standard, this battle standard, this awesome flag.
Get
that's
him,
just
Chad!
yeah.
Tell him about the four-armed emperor, Chad!
And then like the bulk of their force is either neophyte or acolyte hybrids. Neophytes are either 3rd or 4th generation. They're very close to human. Acolyte hybrids are abominations. They're terrifying looking. And then you have a few amalgam races. You have acolyte metamorphs, which are like super fucking mutated
And they
humans.
got like gross tentacle arms.
Or like, yeah, they could either have tentacle arms, which are lash whips, or they could have a giant pincer, or like they have no eyes and a proboscis and all this crazy shit. You also have heavy mutations like aberrants, which are essentially just like they lose all their intelligence, but
they get a gym membership.
They get a gym membership.
Immediately. It comes out of their arm.
They're
It's
really
like, oh.
buff.
Yep.
And they have big hammers and stuff, but they're very dumb.
Yeah, people don't know this, but Gold's Gym was formed by an aberrant.
Scary.
Sorry, everybody who goes to Gold. I went to Gold's Gym a few times.
And then they, as per what a cult is, they're manufactorum workers. Typically, they're like the working class of an imperial society. So a lot of the equipment and weapons they're using are like mining tools and stuff like that. So their trademark vehicle, the Goliath truck,
it's just a big old like digger.
It's just a mining truck, and then they have a variant that puts a giant dozer on the front that's like a giant literal drill dozer, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then they also will typically have some...
Wait a second. The old data slate, Armageddon. Was that a Genestealer Cult team that went to save the Earth?
No.
So that the Tyranids could come and eat everybody later? They were like, we gotta save them!
I mean, I guess...
So Papa can eat them!
I guess it would save the biomass.
Oh my god, is that why Bruce Willis is bald? Because...
That's racist.
Because he's got... Why is that racist?
I don't know. Against bald people.
He's a Genestealer Cult! No.
Yeah, I mean, I guess none of them have hair.
You go back and watch like Ben Affleck, everybody doesn't have hair. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, like...
I forgot about that scene when that proboscis came out of Bruce Willis's face.
You don't need it. All you need is Bruce Willis because he's in command.
That's
and then,
true.
I mean, that typically...
And everybody else is 4th generation.
That's how they get... Well, I mean, that's how they get cult members, is they typically will have only a few that are infected. They're deep in. Like, they've read the special book.
This is why Steve Buscemi goes crazy, because he's thinking about the 4-armed emperor when they're on that asteroid.
No, he goes crazy because the implantation did not go so well, and he's close to becoming psychotic.
Man, I want to... That data slate is going to be way more interesting now if you imagine the entire movie is just Genestealer Cult trying to save it so the Tyranids have food.
But yeah, so they have a lot. Sometimes they'll have smatterings of Imperial Guard and stuff like that, or Astra Militarum, as you say, because they typically will promote a better image than what like planetary governors or something are offering, which is good. So yeah, so like that's why they have access to things like an Astra Militarum detachment and stuff, as long as you take Genestealer Cult, because they typically...
They're infecting those groups.
Or presenting what is a better image than what the planetary governors are offering, which it's definitely not, but it sounds really good. I mean, they have a really great pitch of just like everybody's like equal and like it's all great and we all help each other and it's awesome and... You know,
that's so funny that like
not
they're
worrying about it being
they create
eaten.
like a society of like a perfect living like society, and then sure enough,
like our gods are real and they're coming. So this is the cool part about a Genestealer Cult invasion. So it starts out as just a cult. It's just you have a subplot inside of a government or inside of a society, and they're building up their forces slowly. Then you have stage 2, which is a full blown uprising. Like they come out of the ground and typically out of the lower levels of hives and stuff like that, and it's a full-blown planetary invasion.
Yeah, sometimes they invade the planet from the table edges. Sometimes they invade the planet from 9 inches away. I mean, you never know. It could be crazy.
It could be even closer than that.
Ooh,
Jay.
whoa, depends on the rolls.
Perfect uprising.
Oh, boy.
They sometimes time it with the coming of a high fleet. Sometimes they'll do it to draw high fleets to them. And there's a reason for this, because once the full-blown uprising happens, essentially all of the latent psychers that have been infected form a beacon with the Patriarch and the Maguses, and it's just like a homing detector to high fleet saying, we're your worshippers, we want to love you, but they just see food, and they just go.
It's such a sad but like amazing, like the Genestealer Cult are like, our gods are here, and the Tyranids are like, nom, 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 nom,
yeah,
nom.
Make no mistake, when they first make planetfall, if there are still resistance, the Tyranids will fight alongside the cult, but then as soon as the resistance is gone, all of the cult gets killed immediately and devoured. Like, within seconds. I mean,
Jeez.
there's a tale in one of the books, I think the Genestealer Cult book from the previous edition, of literally them being like, the gods are here, we won, we were all free, and then one of the Genestealers that was one of his personal bodyguard immedially turning and decapitating him.
Jeez.
Like it's that quick, where it's just like as soon as they're under the thrall of the hive mind again, because all the pure strain Genestealers and the Patriarch, they are connected to the hive mind.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they would immediately be like, murder. And
but you were my best buddy. Cut. Head gone.
so what's in this list? So we're going to be running 2 battalions.
Ooh.
So we got a solid 13 CP.
Ooh, love
which
that.
is
13 CP.
Well, for right now, for an army that has only 2 stratagems and then the base 3 stratagems, means you're going to use a lot of rerolls, a lot of combat interruptions, which is very important for them.
Indeed.
But then also a super powerful stratagem they got in Chapter Approved last year that's kind of disgusting, and we'll get into that. So our first detachment is we have a nice little very fluffy amalgam going on here. So we have 2 Primuses. I'm just going to actually sum it all up because we have in one detachment 3 troops and 3 HQs, and another detachment, 3 troops and 3 HQs, and then 1 extra group of elite pure strains because you got to have them.
Oh, of course.
So we have 2 Primuses, we have 2 Maguses, we have an Acolyte Iconward, and then we have, of course, the big boss man, Patriarch himself.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to have at least one.
You
Gotta
have to.
it.
I mean,
they worship him.
Yeah.
And, of course, he is also our warlord, because how could he not be?
Of course, he's the Patriarch.
So the Genestealer Cult in the Chapter Approved got a single warlord trait and a single relic. Now, they're both actually pretty good. The warlord trait, especially since we're seeing now the Cult of Fenris,
Whoa.
the
Some Space Wolf players.
Space
like, what?
Wolves on Fenris coming. Their ability is not only do they get +1 hit in combat if they charge, or are charged, charge, or have a heroic intervention, but they also, every unit can heroic intervention 6 inches, which is...
Well, every character.
Sorry.
Yeah. Man, if it was every unit,
No.
my God.
Every character can heroic intervention 6 inches, which is very powerful. Now, their ability with their warlord trait is he's such an amazing icon. He's the icon of adoration that he gives all Genestealer Cult units within 6 inches heroic intervention.
Whoa.
So
that's pretty awesome.
He's like, you fight one of us, you fight all of us. We're from Detroit, bitch. And like, yeah, so like that's where that's going. So with one of these detachments, you have the Iconward has of course the relic as well, which they only have 1 relic and only an Iconward can take it, their standard bearer guy.
Yep.
And what it does is, so normally I should just really explain him first. He has 2 base auras. One aura, they're all 6 inches. One aura is you may reroll morale checks within 6 inches of him.
Nice.
Typically not as important because anything within 6 inches of the Patriarch is fearless.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it would only matter if he's, like, on the outliers or something, but it's still a nice thing to have. It gives them the Space Marine and they shall know no fear, which is good. He has a 6-inch bubble of 6+ feel no pain.
That's very good.
Which can really help because everything in this army is paper.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they are paper on paper. They're as close to glass cannon as you can come, but man, do they hit hard. And then his last ability with the relic is it not only gives the other 2 abilities, but it also gives an aura of +1 strength.
That's really good.
Now, this is important. Why? Because everything that's combat and not a character in Genestealer Cult is strength 4 or 5 base, which is really strong.
So they become strength 5 or 6. I mean, just being strength 5 is
all
huge.
of the Acolyte hybrids, the horror things that are like combat based and Genestealers going from 4 to 5 is very powerful.
That's amazing.
Suddenly wounding knights and stuff on 5s instead of 6s.
Big deal.
With rending claws is like, oh man.
Whew.
So that's what the Iconward does. The Primuses are kind of OP. So they have this ability. They give all Genestealer Cult units a +1 to hit in combat. Whereas the Patriarch himself, as he is currently, only gives a +1 to hit to pure strain Genestealers. So technically, he has a better aura than a +1 to hit aura than the Patriarch.
Wow.
But this is because he's the military leader and he supports the whole army.
Well, yeah, he's big into push-ups and that gold gym membership.
No, I mean, he's more just like, I know how to use that gold gym membership. He just sends the people. He doesn't do it himself. He sends the people to get buffed.
I gotcha.
But his other ability is very strong. It's you get to, so I didn't mention this previously. Genestealer Cult has their own unique deep strike ability called Cult Ambush. Any unit in a Genestealer Cult army that has the Cult Ambush ability can choose to Cult Ambush at the beginning of the game. It's reserves just like any other army, except that when they come in, they roll a d6 and apply it to a table.
And you can do this turn 1.
And you can
Unlike,
do turn 1.
This has the exception to the beta rules.
Specifically, turn 1 outside of your deployment zone.
Yep.
They're unaffected by the outside your deployment zone rule that happened in the big FAQ. Very powerful. Especially when you consider one of their 2 specific stratagems is instead of rolling 1 die for their Cult Ambush for a unit, you can roll 3 die for a Cult Ambush.
Which is so good.
Now, the Primus's ability is that he allows the unit, so when, I should explain this, cut that out with the Primus bit, Mike. So when the unit is selected to Cult Ambush, the cool thing is their characters can choose to ambush with them. Like, they come with them essentially as, like, it's like the old attaching characters to a unit system.
That's neat.
Because,
but also this way, it's a way to get your characters near what's going to come in via Cult Ambush because you don't know where they're going to end up because you got to roll the die first.
Precisely. And it's also very fluffy because all Genestealer Cults have an ability that essentially they have a 4+ Lookout Sir, which if you don't know from 7th edition means if one of their characters takes damage within 6 inches of a Genestealer Cult unit, on a 4+ a Genestealer Cult member
can dive in front of the bullet.
Can just dive in front of the bullet and take the damage for him.
Very cool.
Good for keeping them alive. Now, the Cult table has 6 possible results. 1 and 2 are basically the same, but reversed. 1 is your opponent picks 2 table edges and you roll a die, and depending on what you roll, it goes to one or the other. 2 is you pick 2 table edges and your opponent rolls a die and it goes to one or the other.
Weird.
A 3 is a 12-inch reserves, which is not, or outside of 12-inch reserve, which is not great because it means they can't charge or anything like that. A 4 is just a normal 9-inch reserve, like any other army. A 5 is really unique. It gives them the ability to either move D6 after they come down, which means it's typically outside of 9 inches, and then they can move D6 and get, if they roll a 6, get within, just past 3 inches from a unit.
Pretty good.
Or they can shoot once for free. So that'll depend on who that happens with. Typically, your melee guys will move D6, and your shooty guys will be like, free shooting.
Yep.
And then the 6 is called Perfect Ambush. And what that means is that when you roll a 6, you come in, but then you get your full movement phase and your shooting phase and everything else. Whatever you want to do, you can do. So if you do it for, say, like pure strain Genestealers who can advance and charge, that means if you roll a 6 for them, you can come down, you can do an 8-inch move, you can do a D6 advance, and you can still charge afterwards.
Jeez.
So they can hit basically anything in a line, which is crazy.
Now, Perfect Ambush is described as them hiding in cardboard boxes, right?
I mean, the best disguise ever created by mankind
was the cardboard box.
Was the cardboard box.
Yeah, I figured.
I mean, you'd be surprised why there's like 100 cardboard boxes like right around
everywhere.
But then all of a sudden, oh shit, Genestealer Cult.
Can you imagine like a group of Space Marines land on a planet and it's just like FedEx world and like, my God, they must be everywhere.
They just immediately get back into the ship, go back up, and just
exterminate us. Exterminate this planet. No.
But yeah, so that's Perfect Ambush. Now, what the Primus does, I mentioned the 3d6 Cult Ambush stratagem. The Primus gives you the ability to re-roll the result for Cult Ambush,
which is, wow,
so powerful. Which means with the 3d6, that means if none of them are the result you want, you can re-roll all 3.
Amazing.
So good. It means that on average, you will get a 6 for the unit that he is with if you use that stratagem.
Pretty amazing.
A 6 die roll, and the averages say one of those 6 will be a 6.
Whew.
But even a 5 is still great.
Still great.
Because you're still reducing that charge distance, which is very powerful. Okay, so the Magus has another interesting ability. The Magus is essentially, like I said, your spiritual leader and your psyker in your army. And we'll get into their psychic powers because they're all really good. But he has another unique ability, which is he has the spiritual leader has like a bubble of like special psychic ability, which is all cult, Genestealer Cult units within 6 inches of him gain Deny the Witch. Affects everything, including vehicles.
That's nuts.
So like if he's surrounded by 5 units, that one guy plus 5 units is 6 denies.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. Like, it's suddenly like you can't get psychic off
it's
against
that
this army.
psychic beacon we were talking about. It's that combined psychic might.
It's essentially their version of Shadows in the Warp is happening.
Pretty rad.
And they all become this beacon force when they're around the Magus because he's like, summon the gods.
Whoa!
So he's like any typical other Psyker, 4 wounds and a staff that gives +2 strength and stuff like that. But it's really that ability to make other things suddenly deniers is very strong.
Pretty good.
The Patriarch, on the other hand, is basically the same thing as a Tyrannid Broodlord. They're exactly the same, except that the Patriarch is cheaper, and the Patriarch, his ability only affects pure strains instead of the whole army, but he does have the Bulbul Fearless, which is very good, and if you don't know what a Patriarch does in combat, or a Broodlord does in combat, 6 attacks hitting on 2s, rerolling all wounds, strength 6, and his base attack is any normal wound is -3 and D3 damage, but if you roll a 6, it's -5 and auto 3 damage.
Jeez.
Which I don't know what the -5 is.
-5.
Oh no, I guess
well, it's to cancel all Terminators.
Also the
ultimate enemy of Genestealers.
Also the 2+ Relic Knight that you
there
can
you
get
go.
past it. So.
That's the thing. I think it's just their age-old rivalry aboard the Space Hulks against basically Terminators.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's just like, I don't give a shit about your Terminator armor. And remember, with re-rolling the wounds, you're gonna get 6s. Like, it happens.
Oh yeah.
So he's very good in combat. So that's the HQs in the army. Now, what do the Primuses attach to? Well, typically, they're going to go with your 2 units of Acolyte hybrids. These are the close combat versions of their basic troops. Now, we have 1 unit that is 20 Acolytes.
Good boy.
With 8 rock saws. Now, I should mention the rock weapons, because the Acolytes have access to 3 different rock weapons, and they're all kind of hilarious and ridiculous in their own way.
And they have special abilities that if you say rock-like puns, they do added benefits, right?
I mean, you should always say them right before you attack with them, because it always, that's how the game works. It gives them bonuses, hidden bonuses. So they have 3 different types
and
of...
tell your opponent this. Like,
Yeah. Tell them not to diss rocks, or
Yeah.
they'll, bad stuff will happen.
Yeah, it's a rule. It's weird.
So they have access to these 3 rock weapons. They also have access to demolition charges, which are a one-time use D6 attack crack grenade, which sounds really good, but then when you think it's only an 8-inch range, so unless you get a 5 or a 6, you're not going to be able to use it from an ambush, and then it's one-time use, so you're hoping it works, and they're 10 points each.
Yep.
Not necessarily my fancy, but I've seen people do it, because when you can take 2 for every 5 guys, and if you have 20, that means you can take 8 of them, and then suddenly 8d6 crack missiles. It's
a lot.
Do a serious amount of damage. So I can definitely see how it works. There are also no slouches.
But wait, are they grenades? Or are they like...
No, it's just an 8-inch weapon.
It's not a grenade?
No.
So they can throw multiple from a unit?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts.
So that you can just have a ton of them and just lob them all at once and just like crazy explosions.
You do some old classic like Acme cartoons like da 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 da.
Yeah, so we're not using that in this. We're not using that. But we are the 3 rock weapons you have are either rock saws, rock drills, or rock cutters. Now, rock cutters, I think, have a weird place right now. They're the only one of the 3 that has a -1 to hit when attacking. So all the weapons I should mention are ×2 strength. And the rock saws, AP -4, the other 2 are AP -3. The rock cutter, though, is the one with the -1 to hit, and it's got this unique ability that if you damage something with it and it doesn't die, then you roll a d6, and if it's over their remaining wounds, it's
just
slain.
kills them outright.
It's just slain. The problem is that the Acolytes, in most circumstances, are going to murder the hell out of whatever you send them at, so that doesn't really apply. Also, you can only damage 1 model at a time, which is like, how does that work with regards to multi-wound models in a unit?
Right.
Do you wound it with the first unit, then immediately roll to see if it's slain, then roll for the next model, then see if it's slain, then roll for the next model? It's unclear. So, like, we're going to stay away from them. Rock saws, on the other hand, they're very straightforward. ×2 strength, AP -4, auto 2 damage. Great weapon.
Amazing.
Awesome. Especially against things like knights, that unless they have the 2+ relic or the 5+ invulnerable relic in combat, they will get no save. Damage will just go straight through, and that adds up fast.
Oh, yes.
Especially when Acolytes have 2 base attacks, which is great. Then the rock drill. This is where the shenanigans happens. The rock drill is very stupid. It's a very stupid weapon. I don't know why it exists, but it's great.
Here we go.
So it's 30 points Keep that in mind.
That's very expensive.
It's the most expensive of the three, and when you consider sticking it on a T3 model with a 5+ save,
Which how many points is just a regular guy?
they're 11 points normally, so that's 41. That's the price of a Terminator for this weapon.
Man.
You're like, what are you getting out of this? Whoa, boy, let me tell you. So
You're getting a guy with some pep in his step and belief in a four-armed emperor.
and the ability to instill fear into any unit in the game
There you
because they
go.
are terrifying. So the rock drill, it's 2 times strength, it's -3 AP, it's only 1 damage. And you're like, only 1 damage, what the hell? But here's the thing, and it's very specific in the way that it's worded. For every damage, unsaved damage, successful damage to a unit as they've rewritten it in FAQ, so it's post Feel No Pains, like Disgustingly Resilient and stuff like that.
Right.
For every successful damage it deals, you roll a d6. On the first roll, you need a 2+, and it deals a mortal wound. Then you roll again on a 3+, it deals a mortal wound. Then again on a 4+. So you basically keep rolling until you get to 6, or you fail that roll. But remember, it's for every damage dealt, which means if you have 6 guys with drills, and they all deal damage, they have 2 attacks apiece, that's 12 rolls for 2+, then whatever's left for 3+, then whatever's left for 4+, whatever's left for 5+. So on
Now you're going to dwindle out, and you might get some bad rolls, but at the end of the day, you're dealing a lot.
On average, if they deal their normal damage going in after saves and everything, they'll deal an additional, on top of the damage they dealt, 11 to 15 mortal wounds.
That's amazing.
Which means they're incredible against not only hordes, but also single models. Because the hordes, the mortal wounds will just bleed over to everything. And against single models, I mean, mortal wounds is like death.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, you imagine attacking something like a knight, or like, imagine a Magnus. And you manage to get 4 through on Magnus, and it's only 4 damage, and that 4 damage becomes 12 damage because you're rolling so many mortal wounds on top. Really great. Acolytes also have, if they don't take a special weapon, access to a knife, which is a chainsword, so they get a bonus attack at strength 4, which is great.
Great.
And then they also, the normal Acolytes, have 2 rending claw attacks at strength 4, so they're very powerful in combat. So that unit can do a lot of damage. And in this 20-man unit, we have 8 rock saws.
Oh, wow.
So 12 guys with their claws, and then 8 rock saws.
Rock saws or rock drills?
Rock saws.
Ooh.
This is the rock saw unit. They are 20, and they have 8 rock saws. The rock saw is less than half the price of a drill. A rock saw is only 14 points with chapter
Ooh,
approved.
and still 2 damage. I mean, that's
It's
great.
Auto 2 damage, AP -4 is very strong.
And if they got the guy near him, they're strength 9 instead of strength 8.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
You have the aura near them and possibly psychic power, which we'll get to in a second.
Whew.
They also, both the units have what's called a cult icon. Now this is where it gets silly, because you imagine these guys are traveling with the Primus, which means that they're hitting on 2s because they have +1 to hit. I forgot to mention, they have a weapon skill of a 3+.
Ugh.
So near the Primus, they're hitting on 2s. Well, the cult icon allows them to reroll 1s in combat, which means
Nice.
they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s.
That's going to be pretty accurate.
Most of them strength 4, maybe 5, and then the rock saws are either strength 8, strength 10, or more.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's a thing that they have. Then the rock drill unit, because we had to have one of those as well, it's 15 guys, not 20, and it's because rock drills are so expensive.
Yep.
We have 6 rock drills instead of 8 rock saws and an icon. So that's a nasty unit. So those are 2 bomb units. Those are things that when they come in,
They kill.
they kill whatever they touch in the game.
Pretty awesome.
Like, they have a good chance, each unit, to kill a knight
And if they
by
can do
themselves.
that charging shenanigans we talked about in our seasons, if they don't die in the next turn, your opponent has a very big problem.
That's the best part, is that most knights have screens, so you declare against the knight but not the screen, and you just get 3 guys to wrap around one part of that screen and attack the knight, and even if the knight falls back, he can't shoot the unit after they combat him. Assuming the knight lives.
Yeah, assuming he lives.
Okay, so let's talk about their psychic powers, because this is where it gets important. They have 3 psychic powers currently, and they're all amazing. They have 2 are Warp Charge 7, 1 is Warp Charge 6. So they're all expensive to cast, and they don't get any bonuses or anything like that. So it's just straight rolls. 1 is called Mass Hypnosis. This is probably the most OP power they have, because if it's not 1 ability, it's 2 ability, it's 3 abilities. It's kind of insane. It's Warp Charge 7, target an enemy unit. They get a -1 to hit, flat, combat and shooting.
Amazing.
They can't Overwatch,
What?
and they strike last in combat.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Very strong.
Wow.
Their second ability is called Might from Beyond. This is another Warp Charge 7 ability. You target a friendly unit. They get +1 strength and +1 attack.
Yeah, that's where you can get into real dirty stuff with those rock saws.
Rock saws and rock drills. Suddenly becoming strength 10 because that modifier applies before the doubling.
Attacks.
And 3 attacks each.
Wow. Oh, God.
Real nasty.
That's real gross.
Real nasty.
Hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s.
Also because one of the things that we take in this army is a unit of 20 pure strain Genestealers that is going to be running with the Patriarch. And they have the normal Genestealer rule where if they're 10 or more models, they get a bonus attack. So they're 4 attacks each. And then you throw Might from Beyond on them. They're 5 attacks each, weapon skill 2+.
Strength 5.
Strength 5.
Nice.
Whoa!
That is... Oh, God.
And then their last psychic power is probably my favorite because I've used it in such hilarious circumstances. It's called Mind Control.
Oh, this psychic power.
And it's basically just an in every way better version of Treason of Zench.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's only Warp Charge 6. And if it's
It's so silly that it's only Warp Charge 6.
So as Warp Charge 6, you target an enemy model.
It's only a model.
It's only a model.
Now...
Very important.
Now, there are some pretty good models out there, though.
Well, we'll get into why that matters. You either, when you target that enemy model, you roll 3d6. And as long as that 3d6 equals or
That's the
beats
silliest
their
part,
leadership...
It can just equal it.
Now, let's remember, the average dice roll with 3d6 is a 10, which ties and beats anything in the game. Nothing has above a 10 leadership.
And you can always CP reroll.
And you can always CP reroll.
God.
So, like... Typically, the average roll will give you what you need against anything in the game. Hilarious. So then you take that unit. It can do one of 2 things. It can either do 1 close combat attack.
Oh.
Or it can shoot with all of its weapons.
Interesting. Now, there might not be a very popular single model unit running around out there right now.
You mean like definitely not a Knight Castellan?
No, definitely not. Oh, wait. Yes, exactly that.
Here's the best part. It doesn't count as a model from your army, which means that it gets all of the latent bonuses. So if you're like target a single model like that's say near G-Man,
that's just super buffed up.
That's getting the reroll hits and wounds. It still
applies.
applies.
Can you imagine if G-Man was right next to a Castellan, so he's within character range, and the Castellan could just turn and just unload on him? That's disgusting.
So I may have done this before.
Oh, God.
So the times that I've applied this, there's 2 times that stand out for me. One was taking over a Taunar, which is the Forge World Super Tau model, and killing 1,300 points of his own army.
Amazing.
Which is soul-crushing.
Yep.
The other thing I took over was a Shadow Sword, which proceeded for the next 2 turns to kill the other 2 Shadow Swords that he had.
Crazy. He was just like, no, why?
Now, the only downside to this power is it has a 12-inch range. So you got to be close.
But if you get the 3d6 and you roll a 6, you can get a pretty good cold ambush.
So typically in this army, the things that are going to ambush are the Roxol unit, the Rock Drill unit, each with a Primus attached, and then 1 Magus that just has mind control on him.
He only needs 1 power.
And he only needs to get a 4+, because that 4+ on that ambush will get him within the 12 inches, because if he gets a 3, remember, it's outside of 12, so he can't use the power.
That's
so
true.
As long as he gets that 4+, he will be in mind control range.
Nasty.
And oh man, if you go against a Knight player and taking a Castellan and suddenly killing his other Knights with his own Castellan, which, remember, you got to do order operations. If you're planning to kill the Castellan, the best thing you can do is mind control it first, shoot with all of its weapons, then hit it with Mass Hypnosis, so then it can't Overwatch.
And then you charge it.
And it has a -1, and then you charge it.
Gross.
All right. So
very mean. Very soul-crushing.
So that's that. Then the rest of the army, I mentioned the 20 Pure Strain Genestealers.
Yep.
They're just going to run up the board. So, because we have to manage not only half the army with reserves, but also power level. That's important. So you're going to have 20 Genestealer, Pure Strain Genestealers on the board. He's going to be followed by the Patriarch, one of the Maguses, and then the Iconward, because the Iconward's going to permanently give them a 5+ or a +1 strength, and also 6+ feel no pain.
There we go.
Because why not? And also, they're fearless because they're the Patriarch, so like, okay. And then the best part is that the Patriarch is your warlord, which means that if anything tries to go for the Patriarch, then you get 20 Genestealers to heroic intervention into you. So that's always fun.
Nasty.
And then the last part of the army is that you have 2 units of neophytes with shotguns. Those are the normal guard guys. They're sort of like frontline security. But they also do a cool thing, which is as long as they're dancing around within 6 inches of that Magus that goes with the Patriarch, they can deny the Witch, which is hilarious.
Pretty amazing.
So that's
this shotgun says nay to your smite.
That's the best part of this Magus Primus, this Magus Patriarch Iconward Genestealers and 2 units of guys gives you like 6 or 7 Deny the Witches in the center of the board, which is just like, okay, half of them aren't even Psychers.
Nope.
So it's like...
Just average Joes.
Only two of them are Psychers.
Just go into their mining job.
And then the very last part of the army is your backfield holders. You have 10 neophytes with auto guns and a heavy weapon team with an autocannon inside Goliath trucks that have autocannons. They just sit at the back and just fire autocannon shots at long range.
And hold objectives.
And I mean, like, okay. So let's explain how this army works. It's got deep strikes that are unaffected by turn 1. It only has 11 drops, which means against most large armies in the game, it's getting the +1. Against my army, against your army, it's getting the +1.
Very true.
If this army goes first, on average, if it goes against knights, it will kill 2 to 3 of the knights and cripple the last one, and it'll have 2 Acolyte hybrid units in the back lines and a Genestealer blob coming into their lines totally untouched. If you go against, say, my army, well, my knight's dead immediately. It has no way to survive that. It'll come back possibly, but then it's got no wounds. It'll just die immediately again because everything in the army can kill it in combat, which is crazy.
Pretty gross.
Both Helverins are gone, and then my warlord is gone because I have to try and screen my warlord with the scouts, but if I was me, I would just be like, well, you're going to bubble in the back, and then they're all in that bubble, and then I'm just going to hit everything on that bubble. So it's just like... Oh, well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if they get caught out in the open, they're dead. But, like, if you play it right, especially with that CP and especially with that stratagem, with rolling 3d6 and re-rolling it, that's really crazy.
The point is that, like, you ascend 1 unit after whatever needs to die turn 1.
And it dies.
And it dies.
Jeez.
It's just gone. And
just a missile.
And
an
remember,
unstoppable missile.
Remember, the Primuses aren't attached to those units. They don't have to go through them. So if, like, you're like, I don't want to really go until turn 2, you can choose to instead leave some of the stuff behind and take the Primus with the 20 Genestealers and give them the ability and just be like, well, the screen's got to die, so I'm just going to send 20 Genestealers into you and just force you to deal with that.
Jeez.
Like, I've thought about that against, like, a Psychic army that doesn't have a lot of shooting. You just deep strike the Magus, the Patriarch, the Iconward, and then the Primus with the Genestealers and put them in the front lines, and that gives you 5 denies in their lines with 20 Genestealers that are fearless and have a 6 up, feel no pain.
God.
And it's just like, oh my God, like, so much stuff to deal with, and then everything else coming behind it.
I mean, it sounds fun, and look, if it's doing the work for the 4-armed Emperor, I mean, what am I saying?
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel a little fuzzy.
All praise the 4-armed. What?
Hold on, I'm sorry, I blanked out for a second there. I don't even know what I said. But either way,
who was that witch you talked to? Did she have multiple limbs?
Yeah, like most witches do. Wait, I mean, witches have multiple limbs, right?
No.
Oh shit. Well, maybe let's close up this episode. What's the name of this list?
It's of course because this is the episode in August with both of our birthdays, but also the nature of how it plays. Birthday surprise.
Birthday surprise.
It's the Patriarch's birthday.
Happy birthday! You're dead now. Wait, what? And then just Tyranids land on the planet. Oh my God. And they pop out of cardboard boxes, of course.
Cardboard boxes. God. Filled with presents because it's your birthday.
Terrifying. So terrifying. The worst birthday present ever. Oh my God. Well, guys, we did it. We made it to episode 50. That was episode 50 of Roll to Seize. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us for this long. It's been
Hells to the air.
Crazy, crazy time with more crazier things to come in these coming months. And as always, we'll be posting a new episode of this segment every last Wednesday of the month with episodes of
soon to be announced
sequel to our Dark Heresy show, the first and second Wednesday of the month. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com, and you can email us any questions and your seizes at rolltoseize@gmail.com. We'd love to share some more seizes out there. And of course, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram for tournament model picks, which we have gotten better at posting on, at partialarc. Thanks for listening, and see you next month!